Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo. I am James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
And as soon to arrive, Mr. John Lindemann. It actually isn't his fault. We're starting a little bit early for scheduling reasons. Today is, and look, you know it's not his fault if I say something isn't John's fault, which is a phrase my brain didn't want to say. It is March 2nd, 2023, and this is episode 812. And for the purposes of being quick out of the gate, we're just going to get right down to business. Guillaume, what is your new business?
Right, so I've started playing this game called Chained Echoes. Now, I'm playing it on Xbox. It's on Game Pass.
I saw you talking about this in the Discord.
Yeah, to complete indifference. So let me talk about it. Complete indifference again.
To be fair, I caught that conversation after it was like 4 hours later, so it would have been weird for me to respond.
You can't call it conversation. It's more like,
I caught your 3 posts about it.
But yeah, so Chained Echoes, I hadn't heard about this until I was listening to Waypoint Radio, another podcast, and they briefly talked about it, and I was like, well, maybe I am in the mood for an old school RPG, like 16-bit style. I just quit on Blue Dragon. It was not what I was looking for. Maybe this is. And so this is a 16-bit style game. As I just said, like I'm playing it on Xbox, but there's no reason this doesn't play on Switch. In fact, the reviews are quite good on Switch. And it just came out at the end, like in December 2022.
Yeah, so, it was like December 8, I think.
Yeah, so this is fairly recent. I think maybe it flew under a lot of radars, but it's also a game that has been like 7 years in the making by mostly one dude who's been using RPG Maker to make it. But there was like maybe it's a bigger deal than I think it is. Like it did have a
it got coverage in specialty outlets. So like I know RPG Fan did an interview. I've seen a couple others that are around. He's done a bunch of like Reddit, AMA, stuff like that. Because as he says, he is, quote, literally, I'm Matthias Linda, developer of Chained Echoes. That's it. Not I am the lead, I am the I am the developer.
Wow. Yeah.
The dev like literally, I am the dev team is an exact quote.
Yeah, he does have, a publisher. I'm assuming maybe he didn't do all the ports himself, but
yeah, Deck 13 is the publisher.
Right. So, yeah. So I didn't, but also it had, I guess what I was getting at is that it did have a crowd starting campaign. So, I think that maybe it just wasn't on my radar. And now I feel like, oh, this popped out of nowhere. But I started playing it, and it didn't really hook me in right away. Partly because, like the first thing, if you, like this has a Wikipedia page, and you see that, one of the first few lines is like, Linda was influenced by games such as Xenogears, Terra Enigma, Secret of Mana, Suikoden 2, Breath of Fire, The Legend of Dragoon, and Final Fantasy VI. Somehow, Chrono Trigger is not listed here, but maybe it's just because, I don't know, maybe he made his own Wikipedia page and was afraid that Square Enix would see this and be like, oh yeah, you definitely played Chrono Trigger and definitely were inspired by it because the opening of the game is the same, it's a riff on the whole like wake up Chrono thing. There's like the whole, what's it called? The Lean's Fair, I think.
The Millennial Fair.
Yeah, the Millennial Fair.
Yeah, it's obviously something that various people thought was really effective because I forgot to mention this. We were talking about the GBA games last week. It was something I very much noticed at the time, but it really brought it back to me playing Minish Cap. Like they just did the Millennial Fair at the start of Minish Cap as well. Like you wait, like Link wakes up, he's then going to go to this event at Hyrule Castle Town with Zelda. Like it's I guess it's slightly different in that, like he knows who who Zelda is. It's not like a happenstance meeting, as it is in Chrono Trigger, but like it's so similar that you kind of feel like it has to be quite knowing from some people on the dev team at Flagship or Nintendo, whatever.
Yeah, to be fair, like the story doesn't take the same spins in the same places. It's more like the ideas or the settings. Like there is a fair, you play mini games. There is like you can bet on a race that you can influence. Like there's a way to cheat at winning the betting on the race. And it's fun. Like the race itself is funny. I recommend doing all the stuff in that fair. I think maybe you don't have a choice, but. Anyway, but you're not, there, like, you don't meet some girl who turns out to be an incognito princess. There is an incognito princess, but you don't get to meet her in that setting. But yeah, so that's going on. And then there is kind of, like, this game's own twist on the whole trial in Chrono Trigger, which, again, like, a different setting slightly. But I was like, when I saw the opening, the Wake Up Chrono thing, when I saw the Millennial Fair, I was like, well, of course, they're going to try to make the reproduce the trial thing, which, if you've never played Chrono Trigger, I don't know if I want to say anything. It's just, it was one of those kind of...
Go play Chrono Trigger, that's what you should say.
I guess, but how would they do that? There's not, I guess, like, there's iPad and stuff. I'm
sure they can find a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was virtual console support at one point, and shops that have been shuttered now, but, they were... Mm-hmm. And then there's the DS version, which is the only way that it's ever come out in Europe, ever.
Oh, God.
That's so amazing.
Anyway, certainly on Nintendo hardware, anyway. I don't know about the weird Sony version.
Like the iPad version probably did at some point.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, again, I don't know about those. But
that version's got issues. And also, we just ghost-tricked Chrono Trigger, which is unbelievable.
But, like, honestly, like, Chrono Trigger, like, you if you've never played it, like, that game did a number of firsts that just kind of blew people away. That, like, we hadn't seen that in RPG before in a game of that kind. So, anyway, so obviously it had an impact on the developer of this game, who pays homage to it. So initially, so I saw, of course, I noticed all of that because I played Chrono Trigger a lot. I've played the other influences much less, so I couldn't tell you. I guess I could recognize Xenogears influences because you do start with a kind of a battle armor kind of robot thing, but then they quickly take it away. I think that you get it back eventually, but I'm guessing maybe that's the influence there. Definitely there is Final Fantasy VI influence, and that, like, initially at least, your party, you meet them like one or two at a time. They all have their own little adventure, like their parallel episodes, and then they join up and they make up your party. And it's really at that moment when I kind of got through all the preamble and the setup, I suppose, and the very, very, obvious homages and kind of, a little bit derivative introductions and stuff, that I really started to enjoy it more, because now the battle system is opening up a little bit. And especially like some of the way that you level up is unlocked to me, and I think that's where this game's fun is. So, okay, first of all, the writing I'm not in love with. So it's not really like the story seems fine, but there's a lot of like the dialogue that doesn't really work on me at all. I can tell that there's supposed to be like, like there's supposed to be a little smirk there, that there's supposed to be little jokes that I'm supposed to laugh at, but it just I don't know, it doesn't work on me. So I'm not really playing this for the story so far, or at least not the crunchy dialogue, although the story itself seems fine. Like, you're a bunch of rebels who are trying to find out, trying to stop a war, basically. It seems like someone there was a war recently between like these three big empires, and now there's been a uneasy peace for a little while. One that truly, like, there were some losers in that peace. They had to make concessions, so they're less happy with it, and they love nothing more than to go back to war and to get back what they feel is theirs. So yeah, that kind of stuff is going on, but it's not like this big, political intrigue thing. It's just like this. So far, it's like this, kind of fun adventure. The battle system, I wasn't sure at first, but it's working out better than I thought it would be. Now that I'm facing enemies that are a little bit tougher than the initial ones, like in the intro. It's interesting because the game wants you to use your abilities, your techs, your magic, whatever you want to call it. They want you to be on the attack most of the time, but all of your parties share this one meter that goes up whenever you take an action or whenever you get hit. And so, like, there's like this meter has this big initial section that's orange, that's just like, normal. And then you enter like a green zone, the overdrive zone, where as long as you stay in that part of the meter, your attacks hit harder. And then if you go over the green zone, you're into the red zone, then like the enemy's attacks hit harder. And the way that you can bring down that gauge, that meter, is by defending, or sometimes it seems to be random, but yeah, like sometimes eventually like your skills, some of your skills will be in a menu in a different color. And that tells you that if you select them, it will make the gauge go down, and you can see the effect when you select, when your cursor is on the skill, so there's no like guesswork here. You see what your actions do, how they influence the gauge, and of course, like, those skills are not necessarily going to be the ones that you wanted to use, but sometimes you don't have a choice. Like, you really got to get that meter down, so you use the skills that you must. And the yeah, so you've got TP, like technical points, or like mana, whatever you want to call it. Then you've got HP. These are always filled up when you're done, like per battle. You never have to spend time between two battles. Just recovering, using, your other potions, or not using them because you're saving them for the last fight or whatever. There's none of that. You're always at full power when you start a battle. You just have to make sure that your party is configured the way that you want it to be. And, yeah, like so there's a lot of these like smart kind of, kind of quote unquote modern touches to it that, that just makes sense, Like, I think that JRPGs have done away a long time ago with the random encounter, and I think that's been a change for the better. And all these changes, like the whole, like, you never have to fuss about with potions outside between battles, is another thing that I think a lot of people have been waiting for, that people want from an RPG. And so it's a welcome enhancement. And yeah, like the battles, they feel just right in terms of difficulty. They keep me engaged more than most JRPG battles where you're facing just the what you call them, not the cruff, the scruff, the small enemies that you just like basically hit, like attack your way through. You have like even your white mage swing their staff at, because choosing anything else in the menu would be just a waste of your time, really. You're just trying to, you can't expedite these battles just by choosing attack and not really thinking about it, just smashing A the whole time through. So this battle system seems to have managed to at least make me pay more attention, be more involved in most battles. And these battles are just like, something like Chrono Trigger. They're you can see them. You can see the enemies on the screen. And so you don't you can get around some battles if you don't want to trigger them. So again, that's a welcome enhancement. And so I talked about the way that you power up that you level up being interesting. I guess in a way like a little bit reminiscent of Xenoblade, in that there are rewards that are tied to doing specific tasks.
Such as,
well, you will have like some unique monsters on the battlefield. And so, if you can defeat them, like that can be, a challenge that the game set up for you. There's like a reward board that it's called, in the menu. And so the game is really, what I've noticed right now anyway, like is all about that reward board. Like that's the main thing that I'm focused on. It has a series of challenges such as, like find, kill these unique enemies, or like fight, like a group of crabs using only your one, like Glenn, your main character. So I had to go and fight a bunch of crabs. But before that, like I removed everyone from my party, and then, I made sure that my Glen was set up to actually hit hard because, otherwise, I was not powerful enough to do that. But yeah, so I managed to do that, achievement or challenge or whatever. That gave me like, another spot on the board. These rewards from individual tiles on that reward board are usually like some money, some XP that goes towards the skills that you can buy or upgrade, and usually some stuff for some loot for upgrading weapons or crafting weapons. And yeah, like there will be challenges like that, like find like all 3 hidden caves in this one area, find like these hidden chests in this place, etc. And eventually on that board, like if you manage to unlock consecutive tiles on the board, then you get some really big rewards that are basically the way that you level up. So when you fight enemies, you don't get XP per se, like your characters don't level up, but you do level up their skills. You do get points that you will be able to put into buying and upgrading their skills. But your guys will not be, their attributes will not be going up. What you need to do is that every time that you fight a boss, you get a thing that basically allows your whole party to level up once. And that's where they, again, like they gain some new skills, but also like that's where their attributes go up. And yeah, like, so you also get that one item that allows you to level up everyone through the reward board. So it's really like you can't really ignore it. And in fact, I don't know why you would, because it's quite fun, like it really gives you a reason to engage with the content, to, like to try to find everything. Sometimes like I would do that on my own anyway, but like it kind of, I don't know, like it's really smartly designed in that like it's just like the kind of a reward that you want to get for what you're doing. It's hard to explain, but it's like instead of grinding forever in an RPG, right? Instead, like I'm doing these specific, yeah, exactly. I'm doing these specific tasks, and the rewards for doing them are known ahead of time, and they're substantial.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Smash board almost. Like when I need to do this thing, and it will give me this in response.
Yeah. So I'm kind of hooked on that right now, and so the game really picked up at that point. Like it's maybe like 3 or 4 hours, maybe shorter than that if you go faster than I did. But yeah, like now I'm really into it. Like if I had talked about this game just a few hours earlier, I would have been like, it's a little bit derivative. This guy sure played a lot of the same games I have. But here, like, yeah, I'm pretty dismissive when I play only a little bit of a game, and I should probably fix that. But now that I'm more into it, like, I'm really enjoying it. I would really recommend it. Yeah, so I'll certainly talk about it more because I'm not as far into it as I would have thought. Like I've played a good 8 hours maybe. I thought this would be a short game, but I saw in the achievements I'm not done with the first chapter of 3. So maybe this is more substantial than I expected. I have no idea when this first chapter will be completed. But yeah, I'm getting it's triggering the same kind of shots of endorphins as when playing Xenoblade. When Xenoblade 2, for instance, when you do I haven't played 3 yet, but there were the kind of the boards where you could unlock different attributes for different
for the blades. The blades, yes.
So it's a little bit like that, but much quicker and much better done,
Give this blade 11 flutes and she'll like you more.
Right, yeah. So
why does she need 11 flutes?
Exactly, right. So Xenoblade 2, I did kind of enjoy that stuff, except that you had to do it too much and it never made sense. Whereas Chained Echoes, I feel, has done something similar, but through tasks that I'm happy to do through the course of playing the game. All you have to do really is just keep an eye on the reward board, see if you're in this new area, maybe you see new tiles, and it will give you an idea of if there's a specific kind of monster that you have to kill a certain number of, or if there is a certain way that you have to kill them. There's this enemy I had to kill with poison. It had to die from poison. So, it's not stuff that's super complex, but it's okay, I know it's there. I can try it, and then you get the reward for it. Then it feels rewarding.
It's very much that checklist sensation of just...
Yeah. So, and also, the game, I think, looks great. I said 16-bit style. Of course, it's not constrained by the actual 16-bit hardware, so it's quite beautiful, but it's got... you can tell that it has that Squaresoft inspiration to it. And, the music is pretty, but I feel you can say that about just about any JRPG. So it doesn't stand out that much, but I haven't been listening to a podcast while playing this game, or I haven't been muting the sound. So it's good enough. It's good JRPG music. So even though this is all made by one guy, he's been working hard. And it's a solid game, and I'm enjoying it a whole lot. So there you go.
Cool. Yeah, I guess this is one of those, I'm aware of this game, but just like you, it kind of... Releasing, in early December can...
Oh, it's tough.
Yeah, it can work to your benefit if people pick it up as their game for the holidays, but, man, I'm going at full tilt from early December, really late November through Christmas. It's really hard to keep abreast of all the stuff going on in the world.
Yeah. And this is one that, again, as I said, I was fairly dismissive. I tried it. I wasn't sure I was going to like it initially. I was it really shows that this is made by one guy who likes RPGs, huh?
Damn.
And but that's I'm an asshole. What can I say? But now I'm eating words that I wouldn't have said, that I probably shouldn't have said, that I ever thought. But
I mean, you said it now, so now the world knows.
Don't be
knows.
like Guillaume from several hours ago.
Cool. All right. What else you been up to?
Probably gonna move on, but I am also kind of concurrently-ish playing a game that I don't know if you've heard about it. It's called 13 Sentinels.
Oh my god!
But I'm
my
not far.
My campaign of play 13 Sentinels worked.
Yeah, and Guillaume, who played only a couple of hours of it, was like, fuck James Jones for making me pay $40 for this game.
First off, that's on you because it's been on sale for like 40 times.
Yeah, but that's the lowest it's been in Canadian money.
That's right. Yeah. Exchange rates.
I did buy it in a dip, but so at least there's that. But also, this is like dismissive Guillaume, who if he doesn't immediately click with a game, is an asshole. But that's I've been playing it more, and I'll be talking about it in the future.
Hey, it's also become a Ghost Trick game where people just want to talk about that game, but they can't because so much about that game is not knowing what it's about to do. So they just badger their friends to play it.
Mm-hmm.
Play this game so that I might talk about it with you because I can't until after you've played it.
Yeah, I've only got so far the slightest hint that things are more complicated than they look. So I'm really not that far. I've actually been enjoying the game, quote unquote, so far more than I thought I would. Like I had seen people talk pretty dismissively about the kind of the RTS aspect of it, or the maybe not it's RTS,
fine.
But
it's just not super complicated.
Right, yeah. I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of a neat twist on like a tower defense kind of thing, except it's kind of working on me because of the art style for some reason.
The art for this was neat.
Yeah. We'll talk more about it.
Cool. I'm glad to hear it. I am going to talk about a couple different things. I'm going to roll through them a little bit real quick. I haven't quite finished it. I'm on the last mission of Fire Emblem Engage. I've messed around with it a lot. I don't have a ton to say that I haven't already said. I do love how much the DLC is just clearly slapped on because I couldn't think of a better idea, because it literally undermines main story beats and the canon of the game, which is amazing. Truly, it's like I don't want to go into it, but at the same time, it's really funny. It's really funny. And the more, it's one of those things where it's like, this really impacts the canon of the game, where the more you think about it, the funnier it gets. And like the more you try to apply analysis to it, the sillier it gets. I'm just gonna say the mission design in this game is bad. It just is. It's too reliant on, we're just gonna flood the field. Fire Emblem's always had that, like, you're very slowly inching up the battlefield looking for traps, and then you cross some invisible line in the sand, and suddenly enemies pour out of every, like, closet and coat rack and crevice in the map, and they're just everywhere. It's like, gotcha now. This game will have that happen, and then every other turn, or every turn, they just keep pouring out as if it's a clown car of enemies. There was a mission in a volcano where they spawned every other turn for like 9 turns. And it's like, for fuck's sake, will you stop? Please. Because at the same time, you're being hit by lava, which is damaging your units if you don't move them. And it's like, for fuck's sake, just fuck. I can't stand on half the map. There was a fog that took away your avoidance and accuracy, but didn't affect the enemies, which is fucked. And they were spawning units for 9 turns. It was horrible. There's just too much of that in this game. The main character sucks. He just sucks. He sucks. There's like a canon about how he changed in his personality. It's like, he was so much cooler before. Why did I get him after he sucks? But he sucks. Yeah, and the emblem thing is just silly. Like, for fuck's sake, can people just let Marth be dead? Please? Please. This is like the 7th game that his ghost has appeared in. I'm fucking sick of it. Marth's ghost is busier than Marth ever was when he was alive. There was one other thought I had, which is that the key point is they can only use these rings to fight the evil Fell Dragon every 1,000 years, which means that in the 1,000 years since the last time they did this, the emblems have come back. The world hasn't advanced technologically at fucking all, or culturally. Everything looks exactly the same. It's the worst world in the world. or in any in the multiverse. They have advanced not 1 inch in 1,000 fucking years, and have done no prep work for the known return date of the bad guy. Genius. Oh, it's just stupid. It's just a stupid game. But I'm gonna talk about something else. I'm gonna talk about something that has, at least with myself and a couple other people on the NWR Discord, hijacked the Discord, which isn't that hard to do. It's not that active, but you should go visit it. Which is AI generated Twitch streams. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, what the fuck is that? Are you aware? This is really the only two options. There's no middle ground. And I'm going to give a little bit of a history lesson. I don't promise to be an expert, but I do, educationally, I have a computer science degree. I have spent a lot of time reading and learning about ML models, learning AI, and how to, how they would be used. I've thought about how they'd be used in my professional career, how we might use them in the place I work. I've got 2 or 3 experiments that I've requested permission to run using ML models. They haven't been funded, so I sit and I wait. But, it's something that we think about. And so I was fascinated with the first one of these that I became aware of, which is a VTuber that is not a VTuber. So if you're not even familiar with VTubers, Jesus Christ, I'm going to take a step back. These are effectively like puppets that are worked through motion capture. Usually they're using cameras rather than motion suits, where they capture facial expressions and hand movement and stuff like that. And then they're mapped onto these models, they're either 2D or 3D models that are used in lieu of a camera for streaming. So where you might have a streamer who has a video camera of themselves, instead they'd have this model. And most of them are anime related. They're people who like anime with anime style characters. They usually have some kind of theme to them, but not always. They'll be like, I am, I don't know, let's say lobster. I'm going to say there's a lobster VTuber out there. I'm just going to believe it. I don't know that to be true, but I'm sure there is. And so it would be an anime girl with vague features that might resemble a lobster, which is totally not germane to this, because the Neurosama does not have any of that. It is one that they got off a public library of free to use models. A man who goes by the name Vedal on Twitch, engineered an AI to learn to play the game Ulsu, which, if you're not familiar with Ulsu, it is a game that takes the mechanics of Oendan, obviously none of the art and stuff, and you can just apply I don't know what you'd even call that, the tapping of all the ball, where you tap all the numbers in sync with the beats coming in, roll the balls around, all those mechanics. It's that, and then it's an open source version of that where you can write your own patterns for music. So you could take any song and you could draw a pattern for it. Obviously, there's none of the weird background shit that goes on in Elite Beat Agents or Oendan. But it's just that gameplay mechanic. And he created an AI that learned to play that game. And the whole thing with AI is you can let them teach themselves by incentivizing doing things correctly, and it will just keep trying stuff until I say incentivizing. It's almost like training a dog. You basically give it a treat for doing the right thing, and it will learn to do the right. It will realize that what I did was right, so I'm going to do it again. It's just like a Pavlovian response, except it's a computer. And you just keep doing that. You just keep rewarding it. And eventually it gets more and more efficient at doing the thing that is the rewarded outcome. And so you just let it do that forever. There's actually a really good video where it shows an AI learning to play 1-1 of Super Mario Brothers. And first it doesn't know anything. So it just runs right into that Goomba. Because it has no clue. It wasn't trained. Actually, no, first it just stands there and just kind of jiggles around because it doesn't know what to do. And eventually it gets to the spot where it clears the stage. Now, does it look like a human playing the game? Not really. But it figured out a pattern to do it. And in theory, because it wants to get the reward, it gets better and better and better and better at it. So eventually this model he created beat the world's best Osu player. It got really good at playing the game. And you could watch, he puts up streams of that AI playing. But what he realized is, in order to make this stream more interesting, he needed to put another layer on it. So he strapped on a a natural language bot that would take the text from the chat and come up with conversational style responses to them. And he created a persona for it, which is a streamer. And so it writes all its responses like the model thinks a streamer would respond to them, which means sometimes Neurosama, the streamer, goes off and tells these insane stories that don't make any sense. Like, absolutely. There was one, I think it was today, actually, when I was trying to decide if I want to talk about this, where the story was something like, I basically played video games all night last night, and then I went to take a shower, but I couldn't dry my hair fast enough, so I used the hairdryer, and the hairdryer got too hot, and my hair caught on fire, and now I'm badly burnt. And she just says that. Like, there's no prompt to it, she just says it. And the chat freaked out. But that's just not how natural language processing works. Is it just takes a word and then it generates the next word based on the context and the previous word, and it just keeps building out the sentence. And that's where her insane ass sentence went. He also strapped an AI based voice generator on it, so it took the text and created inflections to make it sound like natural talking. And then he put a model that you can basically use for free on top of it, pointed her at the chat, and then use an image-based ML processing that looks at the screen and picks up details from literally what she is seeing to play the game, and made the best Osu player and world's first AI streamer, as far as I know. And it's weirdly captivating as it's gotten better. Like, it interacts with the chat. It has a defined personality. Now, doesn't mean it doesn't say completely insane bullshit, and it doesn't mean there's any real canon. If people ask what her age is, you could get any fucking answer imaginable. Like, there's no canon there. It's very stateless in that respect. But it's interesting to see how all those pieces were laid together, and the engineer brain in me was fascinated by that. And I probably watched a lot of hours just trying to figure out, like, okay, what components are in play here? And since she became more popular, he's talked about them. He also had to talk about them because she reacts to the chat and naturally generates text. And of course, the chat spent all of its time trying to make her say bad things and eventually managed to pull it off, and she got banned for a few days. Oops. The next one of those I became aware of was a little bit weirder. And this is already pretty weird. Like, that still feels like a normal stream. This is one that I can't remember the exact name because it's currently also banned, generated Seinfeld skits.
Yeah, wasn't it called Nothing Forever?
Oh yeah, Nothing Forever, because of course it's a show about nothing. And it had 4 personas with the 4 main characters of Seinfeld, but not with their names, with free discount names, and these weird like polygonal models that would move around either the stand-up set, where not Jerry would do a stand-up set, then we'd get like a musical transition back to the apartment, and they would almost always talk about a new restaurant that opened. Did you hear about the new kebab place that opened? Oh, we should go there. I don't know. What about not Jerry? Does he want to go? And they talk about it. But that one had a little bit of state in it. And what I thought was really interesting was the state that it had. One time, because the persona, so you can create these personas for ML where you describe them, and you can give more detail to try to create more and more accurate personas. You can feed them raw data in some of these ML systems. So, like, this is how that character reacts, and try to write something that reacts like the person. And there's some good ones out there that do a pretty good job of it. I don't think any of them would pass the Turing test yet, but they're probably pretty close. If you didn't know that it was potentially ML, I believe some of these could fool you into thinking you're talking to the person they are trying to model, some of the more mature ones. But if you knew that prospect was there, I think you would probably, if you knew that was, if you were being told explicitly, is this the real one or is this AI, I think you would probably be able to detect it. This one, in this one instance, Jerry told the crew at his apartment that he got a Hollywood contract, because he's a comedian. He got a Hollywood contract to make a movie, so he's going to Hollywood. And then he was just gone. Like, he just disappeared from the show for a while, because the AIs, when it was generating the scene, each character would generate their text and the others would respond. And so his AI was like, well, he's not there. At least as near as I can figure from observation. Because what happened is we then had a scene, because it would alternate. Apartment scene, stand-up scene. Just like Seinfeld, it would open and close with him doing stand-up. And the next stand-up scene came around and Jerry wasn't there. It was just an empty microphone for like 2 minutes or like a minute. And then we had the next scene and Jerry wasn't in it again. And he didn't show up until another character mentioned him. Because there's another new fucking restaurant. All they ever did was new restaurants. And somebody goes, we should ask, and I can't remember what they called Jerry. We should ask Jerry if he wants to go. And then he literally appeared in the world like a magician and said, I would love to go. Because I believe the AI that they had trained to speak to play his role had determined that he was not present, and so when the scenes would generate and figure out who was there, he was never contributing dialogue, and so he didn't generate. It was weird as shit. So that one actually had lore, which I was not prepared for. But the one that's absolutely caused like a breakdown in the NWR Discord, is, I want to get the exact name right, but it is an AI that all it does is it generates alternate steamed hams episodes. That's it.
Of the Simpsons.
Unlimited steam. All it does is it generates the Skinner and Chalmers sketch over and over and over again with different foods, different things Skinner's going to replace the food with, different excuses that Skinner gives for the fire, all of it. And it's fascinating because it's just over and like that song that they do. If you've actually seen the full thing, not just the chopped up meme, it's part of an episode where it's like a bunch of vignettes about Springfield, and it was actually like a stealth possible pilot for a spinoff just about the backup characters. And in it, halfway through or right after the beginning, right after Chalmers shows up, there's this like 70s sitcom opening song about how they're always causing trouble and stuff. Sometimes even that's AI generated, where it'll generate lyrics for that song that are basically the same thing, but it's like, here's a phrase, generate an alternate way to say it, and it's sung by like a GLaDOS voice. Do. Skinner and Chalmers, causing all the mischief, bringing up trouble, getting in trouble. Skinner and Chalmers, best of friends. They hate each other. Do. And it's like,
Skinner.
What the fuck is... Yeah, exactly. And then you'll hear the voice and they used voice clips from these characters, near as I can tell, to try to replicate their voice. So you'll hear this AI generator, Skinner. Skinner's mom sometimes pipes up, which is really funny, but that's also random, so it can happen at any time. But there was one that I was watching the other day. They were going to have a nice lunch of blackberries. That's it. That was the lunch, because that was the food the AI generated. And then like they have this really long conversation in the front room or at the door. And that's, it's all basically what I can tell is the AI generates the prompts. It knows the beats. And so then it basically, what's that thing? Mad Libs the scene with the think of a food, think of an alternate food, think of a reason for a fire. And it just sort of puts them into the beats of the scene. But how long they go is just the two personas talking to each other. So they might talk for a while about nothing, or about, they're playing the role that character played in the scene, but they're almost immediately thrown off because they're reacting to the inputs of the other one, which is a fun thing when you have two AI talk to each other. They will absolutely throw each other off. And there's been a couple times where, so the burn. Oh, Skinner, you burned the blackberries. You stupid idiot. What the fuck is wrong with me? Which I'm like, whoa, the AI got saucy this time. There was one time that he prayed to Satan to come up with a solution for the burned food. There was an incident where he looked outside and determined there was a meat truck. So I'm going to go see if they have the meat I need to make, or the cilantro I need to fix this dish. He burned the ice cream once, which was this lunch of ice cream. Skinner, you fool! You've burned the ice cream, and it's like, oh fuck, this is so stupid. It's hypnotic. It just goes forever. But one of my all-time favorites was, what does Skinner say about the fire? What does he say about the smoke? Many times Chalmers has broken Skinner, the Skinner AI, and gotten him to admit that it was a fire, which is always really weird. But Skinner lately has gotten on a kick of saying that it's levitation instead of fire. And the source of the levitation changes, but Skinner, the kitchen is on fire. No, that's just levitation. That's not levitation. I can see the fire. No, it's levitation. It will work itself out. We should put out the fire before it consumes the house. No, it's levitation. Don't worry. And then they're outside, and you hear the mother. It just keeps going. It's so good. There was another good one where it generated a prompt where I'm trying to remember what it was they were making, but it was pie. It was a type of pie. I can't remember specifically what it was. And instead, Skinner made, just cilantro. That was what he served for lunch instead. And so he comes out there and he goes, Skinner, where's the pie I ordered? Because sometimes the AI thinks it's working in a restaurant. Sometimes they're both working in the restaurant. Sometimes it's just Skinner. It's not clear. And Skinner's response was, the pie was poisoned. And I just started laughing hysterically because the pie was poisoned. Of course it was. Why wouldn't it be poisoned? And then they debate, well, how did you know the pie was poisoned? Which is a great response. It was really natural. I asked, very good. How did you know the pie was? Great question. And Skinner goes on describing the pot, the way that they tested for poison in exacting detail because an ML's very good at this. And he describes this mechanism and then he goes, Chalmers asked another good question. Well, where did the poison pie come from? River monsters. And that was it. I was done. The fire was caused by river monsters who poisoned the pie. Great. And then they have a scene outside where he's like, Skinner, your house is on fire. Oh, no. That's just river monsters. They'll move on. And I'm like, great. This is fucking beautiful. I'm delighted.
Did you have the bit where he says river monsters at this time of year, this time of day, localized exclusively to your kitchen?
He did ask to see the river monsters,
yeah, exactly.
And Skinner's response was, "Oh no, they're very dangerous."
May I see it? No.
He always asks, and a lot of times the answer is just no. But in this case, his response was, "Oh no, it's very dangerous." There was one where it was tiny meteors was the source of the fire. No, it's just tiny meteors. Tiny meteors? That's fire. Oh, no, sir. It's just tiny meteors. And then he goes, can I see them? Oh, no, they're very small. You can't see them. It's like, yeah, of course. Fuck it. They're very small. Why would you be able to see tiny meteors? Idiot. It's so good. And then the other day I became aware of one more, which is Always Break Time, which is attempting to generate a slice of life anime in their own quotes longer than One Piece, which will only take them 17 days, where it generates scenes, and there is some interstitial stuff there, where it's just like the scenes of high schoolers hanging out in a slice of life anime during break time. This is the one where the conversation is most convincing. It sounds like real conversation from the source material. This is the kind of dumb shit those animes would have in them. And the character personas are rock solid. They always stick. It's insipid and silly and nonsensical. There's a Chunibyo male. There's kind of the flighty, cute girl. And then there's the more serious, maybe a little bit brooding, who kind of just puts up with their bullshit friend. And she's constantly going, you two are ridiculous. That's a terrible idea. No, I'm the king of this hallway. I'm going to paint it. So it's my castle. That's a great idea. No, you're not allowed to paint the hallway. And it's these skits go on for a while. But then occasionally, there's a monster chasing them. And there's these weird brooding scenes where they're trying to escape from a monster, which is weird. And sometimes the chat is asked to vote and it influences the scene in real time, which is very weird. But yeah, this whole like trend of just auto-generating content is like each one of these has been really interesting to me because I get to watch and try to figure out how the whole thing works. Like reverse engineer it, and that's really cool. The Simpsons one is really fun because the things that it generates aren't really that much crazier than its Aurora Borealis. Although I think there was one that was ghosts. It's like it's just ghosts, and he'd asked, "Can I see the ghosts?" Well, no, they're ghosts. I'm like, all right, that's a little bit further than Aurora Borealis, but not a lot. It's not a lot farther out. I've recently been on a kick of the anime one because it is really like the text is really good. Like the conversations back and forth hold really well, and it doesn't have that weird feeling of like, oh, an AI generated this, except for when like it'll generate bows sarcastically, like it's a stage prompt, like it believes it's generating a script, and the character will just say bows sarcastically, and it's like, well, okay, that one didn't work out. But, it's also generating the video that goes with it. It's really neat how these all work together. And I don't feel like there's any risk of this, it's taking away jobs or anything like that. It's mostly just a neat toy. And I kind of like that. And I'd be curious if this shows up in other content in the future, but they're weird. They can be weirdly captivating. Right at this point, the one I mentioned at the beginning, Neurosama, they've started doing collaborations with other streamers because they put in the ability for capturing the audio of the person talking, converting it to text, and letting it generate a response back. Like, it's conversational now. That's weird. That's really fucking weird, but also it's kind of amazing and captivating, and it's a really fun use of a piece of technology that has largely been used for kind of droll and boring things of like generate text to fill in for this warning or generate a response to somebody asking a question on our website to create goofy nonsense. And it's great. It's like the internet got a hold of a toy and did something really stupid with it, and that's what the internet does, and I love it. That's it. That's all I got.
Well, I know you mentioned like the AI, the algorithm just generating Seinfeld out of nothing because he wasn't in the scene before and suddenly he's there. So what if I told you that the algorithm for our show just generated someone who's been absent so far?
Oh, shit!
Hey!
John Lindemann's here, summoned from the void. Hi, John.
I am. It's great to be summoned.
Say his name and he appears.
Yeah, that's how it goes these days. You know what I mean? Anything can happen.
I wouldn't trust myself to say John Lindemann 5 times without one of those times saying
you have to
Lon Lindemans.
You got it.
And then what happens if you screw up the summoning? Like what comes through then?
Say his name and he appears.
Too, Greg.
I believe in John Lindy. I just fucking Impact referenced you. Jesus, what is wrong with my life? So, John, welcome. We're going to do some email, and then we wrap back around and hit John's new business. So, actually, John, since you're just joining us, I'd like you to read Jonas's email.
Sure thing.
There's an irony to this email. We'll get to it at the end.
All right. Jonas writes, Dear RFN, near the end of last year, I finally gave the BioShock series a shot, thanks to the entire trilogy being only $10 on the eShop during Cyber Monday. It never seemed like a game for me, but once I finally tried it, I fell in love with them, the first game in particular. I found myself regretting not playing them when they first came out, wishing I could have been a part of all the resulting conversations for such an amazing game. Have you guys tried a game years later and regretted that you missed out being a part of the zeitgeist?
So this email's been around for a really long time, to the point of irony, including following up email as a potential follow-up candidate for other emails where it was relevant. Timing is always difficult. So, John, what about you? You've owned a great many games.
I have.
Are there games that
I've had a few, but too few to mention?
Are there
That's
games that you bought and then wish you had played earlier so you could have been part of the conversation?
One that comes to mind, an obvious one, is Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, that's a good
that
one.
That game, came out in '95, and I didn't play it until I'm sure Greg could probably tell me when I played it. Lord knows I can't.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to remember when exactly because it went on for it started. It was a
did.
DS. It was a DS version, right? That you actually ended up playing.
It was a DS version.
But it took a while until you sort of finally declared victory on it. Even it's not the longest RPG in the world, obviously.
No,
especially at the 32-bit era, they got longer, to say the least. But you can still put a lot of time into it because there's quite a lot of optional stuff.
All right, this is amazing. We mentioned the Chrono Trigger DS on 247, 244, 243, 241, 240. 239, 238, and 237, where it first comes up.
So when did I finally declare victory on it?
Well,
what year was that? Because I was gonna make a joke and say, oh yeah, if you've been listening to the podcast for 10 years or less, you probably don't know the whole Chrono Trigger.
You're right. 2011.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Amazing. Trust me.
You started in April.
Yeah,
it was dangerously close to getting out of the zeitgeist for the DS version, I guess is the point, rather than simply the Super Nintendo one.
We really did a good run on this one. Mm-hmm. And then it comes back up again in 642 and 649 because we're absolute just monsters.
It's timeless, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, but see, that's the whole thing. It's like I'm actually part of the Chrono Trigger game, so this is part of me playing Chrono Trigger. Part of me is going back in time to play Chrono Trigger, so...
Wait, hold on. Why did we talk about it again? What? Mm-hmm. What? So we talked about it in 642 because Guillaume was playing it, and then we talk about it again on 694, but I can't figure out why we talked about it based on the notes, and that's really upsetting. Why?
You're probably it can't be a sort of non sequitur on this show. I mean, surely.
But that's the thing. I'm not. It takes a lot of effort for me to add related content. So if we added it, there was a reason.
Yes, but not necessarily a sort of logical or intuitive reason.
I agree.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's passed into RFN lore at this point. So
it was a big deal. I do remember just I think there was a stinger to do with that episode where John finally finished it, where he talked about defeating Lavos forever, and I just cut in the. Just to suggest that he's not dead, John. You'll have to kill. He's come back one day, and you'll have to kill him again. So it's fond memories. What can you say?
John plays Chrono Cross to completion, a marathon.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
I mean, I would have been part of the zeitgeist at that point, but I was part of the zeitgeist, I guess, for Final Fantasy 3. Well,
yeah, I was going to say because that obviously was it's the same general kind of period of time, and that was a really big deal, and that is something that I didn't get into that at the time. I've played it since and I enjoyed it a lot, but it is sort of shades of Jonas's email in terms of you still appreciate all the things that are good about it, the pixel art, the narrative, the music especially, but you wonder how much more impactful it would have felt in the mid-90s as opposed to playing it I think the first time I really got anywhere deep into Final Fantasy VI in any form was on the Virtual Console. So you're talking about late aughts or whatever it was.
Right. So I feel like we're choosing very old examples for the zeitgeist question because
I'm very old.
Yeah, but I mean, I was in high school when I don't know, like Chrono Trigger and stuff like that was out, and no one said zeitgeist. To me, like it's really more like
you weren't in German school.
No one said the word.
One of the problems.
No, but also like it was not.
No one knew what the word zeitgeist meant.
Also like just fucking nerds were playing video games. Like it was not there's no zeitgeist. Like to me, like it's very much kind of with the internet and like chat rooms and discussion message boards. Yeah, like that's where the zeitgeist for video games anyway starts, but Yeah. Anyway, maybe that's just
more
me.
so. I agree with that. I think it's more powerful when you get more into the, I mean, I was very slightly online around about the time that Chrono Trigger and FF6 came out, like really, really early dial-up when you could, there wasn't a lot to do on the internet, and I wasn't even doing what you could do on it because it was just kind of like, yeah, well, this is a thing, it exists. I've gone to Nintendo.com or whatever and seen a microscopic screenshot of Mario 64 or Killer Instinct on Super Nintendo that took ages to load. More so when it goes on and you see more of like people sharing experiences, and I've spoken many, many times about the build-up, even more so than the game coming out, to Ocarina of Time being like this kind of seminal moment for that kind of where you really feel the zeitgeist, as insofar as one can, because it was just such a big deal. Everybody was losing their minds over Ocarina of Time, Zelda 64, as it was often referred to before release, just because we kept waiting longer and longer. You kind of saw more of it, and just the hype for another console Zelda when there hadn't been one for, getting on for 6 years or so at that point, which again felt longer back then. So that definitely kind of, added a lot to the anticipation. And then to some extent, the payoff when you finally got the game and played it. And felt like it did live up to a lot of those like astronomical expectations that you had. So yeah, there was definitely an added element once you got a few years after that. But even back then, when it was mostly like reading stuff in magazines and whatnot, there's still that element of, you did miss out so much on sharing like it with a bunch of people. The way that you might do when you're part of online communities, but you did still have that kind of back and forth with magazines, but also just simply the sort of unprecedented nature of it. You know what I mean? Like, you never kind of get back that feel. Like I said, if I played, Final Fantasy VI when it was new, it would have been a sort of new high watermark for, of the way that they staged like storytelling and soundtrack and all this sort of stuff. And as much as you can still be impressed by it now, and I think you can still be impressed by the artistry of that game because it was very well done. It's not going to have the same impact. So there's almost two elements to this. There's the kind of history of the art form element, and then there's the kind of community part of it and the discourse part of it that went alongside that.
I would say for me, so I've talked about it on the show where my parents, I got an NES when I was really young, and my parents actually didn't even buy that for me. An aunt bought that for me for Christmas when they had dropped to $100, which was a lot of money. I think it's probably been about 90, but the fact that I remember how much that cost when I was 5 tells you how much I wanted one. And then my parents never bought me a video game system until late N64. And we've talked about it. It was that Star Wars Episode 1 Racer bundle. So that gives you kind of the timeline of when I got it. That'd be, 99?
Well, it's at least 99 because that was when the film came out, but I assume it was pretty tight to
yeah,
that.
I think it was pretty tight. So that's basically, I went from 90 to 99 without getting a new console. I had a PC, but it was older at that point. And so, I wasn't able to talk about any of the games people were playing. Couldn't talk about PlayStation stuff. Couldn't talk about N64 stuff. Like, I knew someone who had a fucking Saturn. I knew someone with a fucking Saturn. Couldn't talk about any of that because I couldn't play it. And
to be fair, they probably had a pretty lonely experience.
I mean, and if you asked for a Saturn, well earned.
It just was not all that popular in America, even where those Sega had done so well in the previous generation.
Yeah, but to compound the fact, like, well, you could go to your friend's house and play. One, I'm an introvert, and it was way worse when I was a kid, so that would have been really difficult for me. But two, I went to a school that pulled from a much larger geographic footprint than my high school, so my nearest classmate was like 4 miles away. So it wasn't like I could just go hang. And that wasn't a friend. That was literally my nearest classmate. I didn't even like that person. I thought he was an asshole. So it like I couldn't really even just like go hang out at their place to play it either. Like that would have taken a ride from one of our parents, and that like, can I go to their house to play video games? No, you can't. So I couldn't talk about any of the games that were coming out in like the late 90s because I just couldn't play them. So I remember it was most profound for Final Fantasy VII. Because that game came out and got this massive, unimaginable marketing deal.
Oh yeah, it was big. I remember that. I remember getting the comic, like Marvel comics at that time, and just seeing the double page spread of Midgar. With all black, with the city lit up and all that. Like, just thinking, I've never seen a game get a push like this before. Admittedly, I didn't have that much experience to draw on. Most of the things I read up to that point, that were like magazines, were games magazines. So, it's a skewed perspective, but still.
I remember. This was back when MTV was producing actual content and not just showing like the same show for 20 hours straight. This was like peak of their powers MTV as a television show network rather than music videos. So like Beavis and Butthead this was like coming off the edge of that power, but like moving into the next wave of stuff because they had a couple waves after that. I remember they were running an ad for Final Fantasy VII in almost every commercial break at one point, which must have cost an obscene amount of money.
Yeah. You couldn't avoid it.
Yeah. And so, like, all of my friends had it. They were all playing it. And they weren't just playing it. They were bringing, like, the strategy guide to school to talk about, like, things that they had, like, as a tool to speak about the game. That's the degree to which they were speaking about it. And I didn't have any of that. I wasn't allowed to have any of that. And so, like, I'm just, like, that's not something you can even participate in the conversation. Like, you're just done. And it's like, on the bus ride, and like I said, I lived really far from my school. Our bus ride, like, my bus stop was a mile plus from my house. I happened to live close-ish to it. Our bus ride was really long. Like, it was like 25 minutes of just sitting there while they're just talking. And it's like, when you're in middle school, which is what I would have been at that point, like, that's not just like, oh, I'm missing out on the zeitgeist. It's like being social isolation. Like, it really feels bad. Like, it felt really bad as a kid. And like, I remember explicitly saying to my parents, look, the fact that I'm not allowed to have a video game system is effectively socially isolating me. I'm sure I didn't use those words, but that's the problem.
I don't know, James. I wouldn't put it by you at any age.
I was 13. I might have said it that way.
I'm sure you would.
12. But I mean, that was the point I made to them, was like, this is actually socially difficult for me because I can't talk about anything that they're talking about. And eventually, and legitimately, I think if it wasn't Episode 1 Racer Bundle, I wouldn't have gotten it because my mother watched that, went to that movie and enjoyed it. And I think that legitimately was the thing that was enough of a tweak that caused me to get it. It's entirely possible I wouldn't have gotten an N64 either because I didn't have any money. So it was like that. To me, that was when it felt the worst. There's obviously been times now, like before I got this laptop, I had one that wasn't very powerful, and Seren would be like, "Hey, you should play this game," and I'm like, "You're right, I should," but I can't. I'm sorry. But that was the most profound because it wasn't just like I'm missing out on the conversation, which feels a much more online thing. I was online in middle school, but it was different then. Like there wasn't so much to like. It was more like I have this immense, powerful toy. But like now it's much more of a I'm in a Discord. I'm talking to people. I'm on a fucking podcast where we talk about video games, and sometimes I fret that the latest game has come out and none of us are talking about it.
Like now we know the last 15 years of this podcast wouldn't have been possible without the pod race. So
It's true.
Ripples in a still pond.
There you go. When none of us talked about Pokemon
Scarlet Violet.
Yeah, I was starting to fret that. I was like, do I need to play that game so somebody fucking talks about it?
Yeah, but at the same time, though, I think people come to our podcast because every other podcast is talking about that game to a certain degree.
Yeah,
like,
we've seen no shortage
of
chat about that one, I should imagine, especially with the technical problems that always tends to, bring people, to talk about it. It's like, in a weird way, almost kind of, I mean, look, it's a new generation of Pokemon game. It's always going to be a huge deal, but the fact that it was some sort of technical disaster almost helped make it more like conversation worthy, it seemed like to me from the outside.
But do they have the profound skill and deftness that we have? Can they talk about it with the same context and insight? Can they spend a bunch of time talking about how Pokemon Sleep is going to influence Pokemon you have in future Pokemon games?
Oh, Pokemon Sleep.
The Pokemon... All right, John, have you seen that Pokemon Direct news?
No.
You're missing out on the zeitgeist right now, John.
Oh, no.
So do you remember the Pokemon Plus, which was that thing that Nintendo made to go along with that one went with Pokemon Go, right?
I think it was very late to the party, if it's the thing I'm thinking of, but they did get there eventually.
If you were making a device that still does the Pokemon Go stuff, but now partners with Pokemon Sleep, a sleep tracking app with Pokemon, what would you call this sequel device?
Snorlax? I don't know.
So Snorlax features heavily in the game.
Pokemon plus cats.
There you go. So the first device is called Pokemon Plus. What would you call it? Think like Nintendo.
What, Pokemon Plus DX?
You're closer than you want to be.
I'm closer than I want to be, but as close as I probably expect to be.
All right, so I'm going to give you more context. They made a mobile game called Pokemon Masters and made Season 2 Pokemon Masters EX, which if you take the S off Masters and put it with EX.
Wow.
Pokemon Master Sex.
Yeah, wasn't that a TV show?
Pokemon Masters Sex.
So again, I'm going to give you one last chance. What is your sequel device to the Pokemon Plus?
Is it Pokemon Plus EX?
No. You wish. It's Pokemon Plus Plus.
What?
Oh, it gets better.
That's
it's
ludicrous.
It's PLUS plus symbol.
Makes no sense at all.
It tracks your sleep. And then it makes Pokemon noises at you when it's time to wake up.
That makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. That was the best part of that direct, and it wasn't even close.
I gotta say, watching that, it was a little while back, but a bit ago I saw the new reboot of Child's Play, where Chucky is like a smart device that hooks into other smart devices and stuff.
Yes.
It had some pretty strong vibes of that, but if any of the Pokemon in Pokemon Sleep are voiced by Mark Hamill, we may be in trouble.
Oh, that's beautiful. Guillaume, what about you, Zeitgeist?
Yeah, I don't think that's ever happened to me because my usually if I go back to certain games, either they're too old to ever have had a Zeitgeist, and so I don't feel like I've missed out on the conversation. Like I mentioned recently that I played Phantasy Star 4 on the Virtual Console. I freaking loved it. It's a great, old school RPG. But did I miss on the Zeitgeist? Not really. Like the Zeitgeist was probably always as big as it could possibly. If I started talking about it at the time that I played it, that was probably the Zeitgeist. What
about Blue Dragon? That was big in the cultural conversation.
That did not really lead anywhere. But also, I looked up on old was it called Resetera back then? No, it was something else, right?
It'd have been NeoGAF.
Yeah. Anyway, I looked up old threads, and there was never a Zeitgeist. People were always clear-eyed about how mediocre it was.
So here's kind of an interestingly related one. When was the zeitgeist for Xenoblade Chronicles on Wii?
That was a bit of a rollout because you kind of had like the Japanese release, and obviously some people who have Japanese language skills, or some people that were just going to try and bulldoze their way through the language barrier, like played it, and you had some. I was kind of tracking it, like you heard some positive things, but obviously it was not like a tidal wave by any means, and it didn't really sell that much in Japan.
No.
So even though obviously to that point Wii had been a relatively big success in Japan, that particular game didn't like come out and blow the doors off. And so mostly the zeitgeist around Xenoblade was, can we get this thing to come out? And then it's like, okay, well, Europe are going to do it, and then. That was the big the sort of its peak relevance in the sort of discourse was this general kind of trend of like, why have LOA sort of taken this kind of hard line with particular types of games, and then obviously NOE coming in and they start to do some things of their own, and rather than the game itself. But I guess the problem is there wasn't the word spirit of the time, right? Well, there wasn't one particular time where Xenoblade broke out. It was a succession of things that kind of accumulated over time rather than at one point in it. And it kind of, I do feel like maybe if you take a looser definition of like that process that occurred over like a couple of years or whatever it was, like you could kind of say so, but not like a one burning hot like you sort of said with Final Fantasy VII when the marketing blitz was inescapable, or with Jonas's email about BioShock, like that. Every podcast had to talk about BioShock and how we did. So like that was another one where it's like it was really super concentrated. I mean, I played BioShock on PS3, and I didn't get a PS3 until a couple of years after BioShock originally came out. So it was probably like 2010 by the time I played BioShock, which obviously far closer to its release than Jonas is talking about, but I kind of felt like I missed out on that real, concentrated, like this is the hot thing that everybody's talking about in 07, I think it was, wasn't it? So, even that, not that far removed, you can feel like you kind of missed its moment when it burns that kind of hot and bright.
Yeah. This is interesting because I think we could probably, and if somebody wants to do it, you could send an email to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. Ask what the value of a game being in the zeitgeist is, or how it affects how you perceive or interact with the game, or how it affects how the game is talked about. Like I think we're far enough removed now from 2020 that we can talk about how. I mean, it was easy to say like, oh, the pandemic made Animal Crossing more money, which it did, but like understand how that influenced how people perceived the game, and have that kind of secondary analytical approach to it, not just the raw numbers conversation, but its social impact, it's the impact it had on players. Like I think there's part of that's tied in with zeitgeist as well. Oh, definitely.
And I think Animal Crossing is a special case because so much of it is about sharing, my island, turned out differently, and some of that is, what you do with it. Some of it is that, what villages do you get, what things just kind of happen, and the fact that there were so many people playing the game at once, because and there always would have been. Obviously, Animal Crossing, long since established itself as a very big deal on Nintendo hardware, even much less popular hardware than the Switch was even before the pandemic. But the fact that he's like, okay, you've got all these people playing it all at once with better ways of sharing their experiences than they've had before, even though, I'm sure, something with Nintendo's integration with social media and stuff is still a bit underwhelming, but, there's a lot more opportunity to share than in the past. Right. And then that kind of enriches everyone's experience, right? Because you appreciate more, what's going on with your island when you see, the differences that other people have, or it, kind of gives you reason to try things you might not have thought of, or, all that stuff. I think Animal Crossing, the whole, communication game angle that they had all the way back on the N64 game. Like, it's the kind of apotheosis of that, like, in a way that they probably couldn't have even envisioned back then on N64, just how broad and how kind of pervasive that stuff could get.
And in a moment where people were particularly eager for contact.
And just that kind of mellow, kind of low stakes kind of vibe. Something to occupy your mind, but not like occupy your mind with, oh God, there's a zombie apocalypse or this, various other things that are often the case in popular games.
It's a few, it's been a few years now. No, I say a few years, but it's been a few years from that moment where everything was so, was just question marks. Everything was question marks. Like even the fundamental vector through which COVID-19 spread was a question mark. And it was a palpable fear, and there was stress, and there was concern, and there was worry, and there was just this massive unknown that game provided a specific type of salve to. But I think its role at the center of the zeitgeist in that moment. I mean, people were hosting fucking talk shows in it. Like, I think it fundamentally changed how people perceive the game, how the game was, how people playing the game, people who planned to play the game for years. I talked about it, that time where I fell into this weird abyss of people making their Animal Crossing dream journals about the island they were going to build. That happened before the pandemic. Like, that energy was already there, but it engaged people who didn't do that. And it created this weird situation where, because the game had become so popular, and because it was so everywhere on social media, and because it was so, it wasn't a mechanism to communicate either directly in the game or through your social media content you post about your island, that it produced, I would say people who were playing it in that moment would have enjoyed it more than someone who played it now, even though there's more content now, and the game is certainly more stable and it's better. It's inarguably a better game now than it was then. But I think people playing it then simply would have enjoyed it a lot more, or at least have a much deeper emotional connection to it because of its place in the conversation and our place in the world at that moment. I don't know there's a game that could ever hit. I mean, I hope to God there isn't.
Anyways, let's hope there can't be such a thing for a while.
Could hit with at like such the moment with such the impact, and I would not be surprised if it manifestly improved the mental well-being of a great many of its players, just because of where we were at that moment in time. And that's a bar that I don't think games can really aspire to on the regular, which is probably a good thing. But I don't know that anybody playing it now would have the same emotional experience as someone who was playing it in, was it April 2020? Like,
well, it's just before, they just got it out in time for the end of the fiscal year, so it was in March. But yeah, I mean, obviously,
just barely.
Yeah, it was one of those where it's like, well, look, it's a big launch. They probably didn't appreciate how big it was going to end up being, but it was. And
it was like 7 days and 3 million.
It was almost exactly timed around with the somewhat belated restrictions coming in the UK. So it was definitely in March, but not as early in March as it should have been. But certainly it then went on, for quite some time. The kind of, that really intense kind of, as intense as Animal Crossing can be, in terms of the sharing and that kind of communal aspect of it. But that is going to be tough for people. And who knows how long it'll be before the next Animal Crossing, because it was weirdly long from the 3DS game to that, and so there was a lot for people, the more enthusiastic sort of...
the mobile game had come out, but...
Yeah, your Happy Home Designer as well and stuff, but, who can forget the Amiibo Festival thing? But
oh my god,
there was pent up demand amongst the enthusiast sort of Animal Crossing players, of course, because it had been so long. But you never would have imagined it would have been quite that intense. So even if it is several years until the next proper full-on Animal Crossing game, you can't imagine it's quite going to be that intense.
Oh, no.
Again, we should really hope not. So probably.
Happy Home Designer is forever ruined because Carly once just said to herself, "Happy house arrest," because you were stuck in a room designing it. And forever, that game is now ruined. That game is about your character's been trapped in a house because they're under house arrest. Just one passing comment, which I guess is a zeitgeist thing in its own way.
Yeah, that kind of missed is if they held it over, and if they held that over until 2020, maybe that could have been very much in the spirit of the time.
That game is just happy house arrest to me forever until the day I die.
I think one more thing I'll say, it's maybe a little bit early because it's not quite, as you said, in their sort of online fully online sharing. But I think Symphony of the Night is a game that, obviously I've played quite a few times. But it was many years after the fact, and you kind of already heard a lot of stuff about it and all that. I think it would have been really interesting if it was in that sort of scene, that kind of burgeoning scene online, which I say might have been a little bit early for me, possibly, because I wasn't doing that much stuff online in 97. But some, I said that aforementioned long build up to Zelda, going on early Zelda fan sites and stuff. And Castlevania, like the Castlevania Dungeon, Kurt Kalata's website, if anyone remembers that.
Oh yeah.
I did look stuff up on there and stuff. If I'd been part of that scene, I think that would have been a very different, very sort of more rich experience in terms of, the people who actually were importing the Japanese version, because there was a pretty big gap. I think it was 6 months in 97. Mm-hmm. And then sort of discovering wait a minute, this isn't the real ending, and there is an inverted castle and all the other stuff. It would have been a much different experience and probably just a much more exciting one than, again, when you play, you still enjoy it. There's it's exactly what I said about Final Fantasy VI earlier on. There's so many things still to enjoy and appreciate about it, but you miss out on, the relatively kind of state-of-the-art things there were about it, even though it was very much kind of going against the grain by being a sprite-based game on PlayStation at that time. Well, for Western markets, that was against the grain anyway. But then there's that discovery element that everyone was the people who were importing it and playing it were discovering because there's so many weird edge cases in that game, the different equipment things and all this kind of stuff. There's just is so, even though there's been a lot of the games in that template since, that's the one that just has the most arcana built into it. And everyone was kind of, especially with the language barriers, it was getting pieced together over a period of time. So it might have been a bit more of a slow roll, a little bit like we talked with Xenoblade, rather than the red hot, Bioshock. But I think that would have been a lot of fun to be involved with. And I did feel the absence of that at the time, because obviously I dearly loved Castlevania. And, but importing N64 was very expensive, and the PlayStation was simply, not going to happen. So I kept waiting for Castlevania 64.
Oh boy, there is a conversation around whenever these Souls games come out that, because there's so many secrets that are just bullshit, you just need to hit this wall. Is there any hint that you need to hit this wall? Not really. Where people online, as they're playing that game, are literally reporting secrets to each other like fucking rumors. Hey, there's this wall in this random place, and I accidentally walked through it. You guys should go look, and it's just a section of the game. That's really something you can only have in the moment when that game launches, as people are out hunting for secrets and reporting them out as part of the internet discourse. But that's for a really hardcore fan thing. I
was just going to say also the whole zeitgeist thing, I feel necessarily for me would have to be like a PlayStation or a Microsoft thing, because starting with the GameCube, I kind of played everything that I wanted to play from Nintendo. I just and it was easy back then to just like get a game, play through a lot of it. Then like trade-ins were a thing that I did a lot. So I ended up, like, even though like I wasn't making more money than I am now, like I just ended up playing a whole lot. And so, and also I had like the IGN boards, which love hate them.
Some of your best posts, I'm sure, Guillaume.
Oh God.
So many wasted years of my life that I'll never get back. But yeah, I was part of those conversations, right? So I just there was no I was not missing out on anything, I felt. And like the stuff from N64 when I was not so much into console gaming, I think I would have felt like I missed out on the zeitgeist if it had been possible for me to get back into them. But I feel like 3D games got good with the GameCube, basically, in the PlayStation 2. And like there was something, like I played Time Splitters 2 before I ever even saw Perfect Dark, or I saw like pictures, like stills of Perfect Dark. I had never played Perfect Dark. I had never seen it in movement. And my first experience with Perfect Dark was, someone threw, like in the dorm room, through the split screen multiplayer, under small TV, incredibly dark picture and incredibly bad frame rate. And also controls that I was not used to anymore. I had played GoldenEye. I hadn't played GoldenEye in a while though. And so I was just like, holy shit, how do I do to not just be staring at my feet? And it was like the most miserable experience, and it just like basically convinced me like, there's no going back to this. I can't. I just can't. I don't want to. And so yeah, like and with the GameCube era, like the people, maybe like if you're more recently into Nintendo or more recently into video games, like people don't know what it was like. And it started in the N64, but it continued in the GameCube, like this stream of, well, was it a stream of games? It was more like a little creek. Like a little
trickle,
a drizzle, trickle.
It was a drought of games.
Yeah, often. Like the last 2 years of the GameCube had Chibi Robo, so I was part of the Chibi Robo zeitgeist. But
oh my god,
yeah, that's the only game that was on there.
I can't even come up with the fun
so
wordplay.
So it was
for
possible
that.
to follow all the zeitgeists, basically. Like it was. You could keep up with Nintendo. Basically, it was easy. And then that started changing with the Wii. Yeah,
like if you wanted to but like if you were a GameCube only person, you were missing out on a lot of stuff. That was like you missed the whole GTA 3 era.
Yeah, but I feel like that's not that's kind of like a Nintendo 64 game for me. Like I'm like I feel like I'm not really missing out on not having played it. But I have played a whole ton of open world games. I know its impact. It's just I don't think I could go back to.
No, 3. I don't think you could go back to. But I think in the moment, being part of the conversation, that part of the zeitgeist. If you were a GameCube only gamer, you definitely missed out on that a lot for a lot of different games. You had to convince yourself that True Crime Streets of LA was good.
But I was in a weird bubble then. Like the whole, like I was on the internet, but I don't think I realized how big GTA 3 was. Like I remember my brother who had moved to London at that point. Like I went to visit him, and he was like, "Hey, I've got a PlayStation 2 and GTA 3," and I kind of looked at him blankly, like, "Okay, you have one," because he's not, he was never into video games, but also like, okay, and you're telling me because this is a big deal, but I'm not. I think I was less aware of how much of a big deal it was than he was, even though I was super into video games and he was not.
It was certainly a big deal. It was certainly a big deal over here, that's for sure. I knew loads of people that you wouldn't think of as like being super video game enthusiasts that had that game, but it never really desperately appealed to me.
Yeah, that's the thing. It was easy to ignore the stuff that I knew I was not into.
Well, I feel like, yeah, it appealed to a really broad audience, and for lack of a better way to say it, if you were like a kind of hardcore video game nerd, it probably flew right by you.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
Right? My experience with Grand Theft Auto 3 was that I remember, I had a PlayStation 2, but I don't even think I had GTA 3 at that time. And I remember going to work and there was a PS2 in just kind of off in like a little cubby hole, because this was back in the tech boom where like, you know, every single tech office had like, you know, fucking video games and free Coca-Cola machine and all that kind of stuff, right? So of course we had like this little room with just off the kitchen with a PlayStation 2 in it. And I remember one night I was going home, and I had to walk by this room on my way out of the office, and there's a crowd around the television, and I'm like, what the heck's going on in here? And it was somebody playing GTA 3, and it had like attracted this crowd, and they're like, wow, look at this, look at all the stuff you can do. And I'm like, that's friggin' wild. So it was a really big deal, and it really attracted like a broad mainstream audience to it. So it was weird, like this sort of like audience completely outside of normal video game-dom.
Yeah, it sort of tickled me. I found it like quite curious, because of course, because they were, you know, British developers, like the earlier Grand Theft Auto games that were top down got a lot of coverage. Right. So I never played them, but I was very aware of them. And then it became the biggest thing in the world. Like, it's like this a sequel to like those top-down British games is like the biggest thing in the world. Like, what is going on?
I had played on the PC the demos for the first one or the second one. And so, yeah, it completely, like when my brother told me I have GTA 3, I was like, I don't know what that means. But it was already like so huge, and I just managed to completely ignore it.
Yeah, I mean, it had gotten to a place where you could just say the acronym, and that was it. Like, people knew what you were talking about.
Right. Well, I knew, and I didn't know. Like, I never bothered to look up GTA 3. So
sure.
Also, but again, like I say, like I wasn't in a bubble, not just because I was playing on Nintendo, but also in the dorm, I didn't have TV. I didn't have, so sure. I wasn't being advertised to.
I wonder,
was
it as big in Canada as it would have been in America and the UK? You know, because obviously it panders relentlessly to American interests, you know, and is essentially sort of pastiche of American media. But then it was also developed by British people, and therefore, you know, got a lot of coverage in the British gaming media. So, like, the US and UK markets are kind of, you know, you'd inevitably expect it to be ridiculously big here, but maybe it was easier to ignore in Canada.
I wouldn't say, I wouldn't know. Like, I didn't even know that many people who had a PlayStation 2, to be honest. Like, in the dorms, like, it was mostly, maybe a GameCube, but mostly Xbox with Halo. That was the big thing. But am I too far ahead now? I don't even know what the timeline is anymore. Anyway, like
Halo
anyway.
And GTA 3 were both 01. Yeah. So.
Yep. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So GTA 3. Not so much, not so popular in the dorm. Or I did have, like, there was one guy who had a PlayStation 2, but I actually got into a fight with him, and we didn't speak. So that was a really awkward end of semester for me, but also, I had no access to a PlayStation, and I would not have played GTA 3 with that guy, for sure. Anyway, I need to go, but you guys can keep talking.
Yeah, Guillaume's got to jump, but Guillaume, thank you for joining us this week.
Sure.
And we will catch up.
Always great to be part of the zeitgeist.
We're on the bleeding edge of it every single week.
Yeah.
Oh, God damn it. All right, we'll catch up with you next week, Guillaume.
Sure. Take care.
All right, later. I think that'll pretty much do it for that email. The only thing I might think about is what is a game that you got in on the zeitgeist ahead of time, but we can talk about that some other time.
Oh, you were so cool that you were in on it before it was cool.
So I mean, there's a really good example of that, which is Yakuza 0. If you played Yakuza before Yakuza 0, people who are freaking out like, "Where did this game come from?" You're like, "Listen, I've been here already."
I would throw Monster Hunter in there potentially.
That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
I mean, I was playing that back on the PSP way back in the day. Couldn't make heads or tails of it, but now it's just funny because I look back and like I'm the one who's sitting here saying, "Oh yeah, remember back in those old games when, when you couldn't even figure out what you could collect in terms of like herbs and stuff like that. Whereas now in Monster Hunter Rise,
it's all written up for you.
It's just all written up for you. Or like I laugh every time I see the icon come up for when the monster is weak and trappable, because like that was one of those things where you had to know the signs for each monster for the longest time for several Monster Hunter games. It never gave you an icon showing when the monster was trappable.
Also, those games were on the PSP with god-awful controls.
Yeah, like, I mean, there was the joke around the Monster Hunter claw. The way that you had to hold your PSP to try to manipulate everything properly. It's really funny. Yeah,
like but there were people who were especially in Japan, who were hardcore into that thing before it broke big.
Mm-hmm.
There's images of a bunch of Japanese high school kids around the special size of fries that McDonald's made in Japan just for this kind of group of kids, where it's like 10 boxes of fries as one order.
Yeah,
just heaped up, playing PSP until the battery died, which probably didn't take very long.
Yep. I was also playing Fortnite before it became Fortnite.
Before it became a battle royale?
Yeah, when it was just like, a mediocre building game that nobody could really understand what it was about.
We've made a shooter and put building in it, and everybody was like, but why?
Yeah, I mean, really, it was just like a horde mode game. And everybody's like, okay, this isn't terrible, but like, who cares?
Like, it was two great tastes that taste confusing together.
Yeah.
And the response to that game was largely like, okay, why is there a building mode in this shooter?
Yeah, it was just weird. It was one of those like games where you kind of play it and you're like, this isn't really bad, but what are they trying to do here, and why does this exist?
And now fucking Thanos is in there with Diplo and whatever other shit's been added to that game.
I know.
It was the biggest thing in the fucking world for a minute. That same thing happened though with the first battle royales, that first wave of them.
Like PUBG.
Yeah, like PUBG was originally a mod for Arma, I think. Was it Arma? It was one of those like really, really niche first-person shooters.
Mm-hmm.
And like the player unknown is the person who made it, and then PUBG was effectively like a standalone product that is the game.
Yeah.
And that had its people were there before that had its moment, and then it hit zeitgeist. Like I think Yakuza Zero's moment, because it was finally on a platform with social media shares baked in. Like that game is better than the games that came before it in terms of like being professional.
Mm-hmm.
But largely it was a function of the publisher knew what they had, versus like Yakuza 4 where they're like, fuck this thing. With like this Japanese ass, and 3, this Japanese ass Japanese game. We spent a whole bunch of money calling it Japan's GTA 3 for 1 and 2. We hired Mark Hamill and an all-star cast to do voice for it and made it really expensive, not realizing that the game really only appeals to people who don't care if it's got Japanese voice acting. They changed a bunch of characters' names because they thought they sounded too similar and would confuse Westerners. Like, that's what that game was. And then 3, they basically just released as is, and 4, the same. But then with the shared feature and a publisher who was like, this game's really silly. We should play that up on social media. Like, that game exploded. But if you've been playing it before, you're like, I've been saying this for years. It's right there. Come on. Yeah, that's kind of a weird, like you can, it's easy to, when you say miss the zeitgeist, you assume come later, but I guess it is possible to miss it
early.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, miss it before. I mean, it's like when you start listening to a band when they're when they're just like the indie band that makes a couple of cool albums, and then you sort of go away from them when they blow up.
Right. To a certain degree. And this isn't even necessarily like you go away from them. It's just like you're befuddled by where you're at now. Like you just look around and you're like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Where are we?
Yeah. It's like, what is new to people or what they're raving about? You're like, but that was cool 5 years ago.
I was on this show telling you people to play Yakuza 4. I was.
Yeah.
And the shit in that, I was describing shit in that game that's the same shit that's in Zero, but I bet nobody was like, James is probably onto something.
Yeah.
I should go play this game.
Yeah.
And it's
it's like with Uncharted. I remember being on this podcast talking about the original Uncharted.
Yeah.
Saying that it had the best cutscenes, bar none, that I had seen in any game ever.
Right.
And I feel like now, only with The Last of Us, are people like, wow, these cutscenes are absolutely amazing. I'm like, yeah, they've been amazing since like 2008 or whatever the original Uncharted came out, 2007.
I don't know, maybe that was just a problem, the PS3 slow start, maybe, I think, probably. I feel if the PS3 hadn't come out and bought so many things and been kind of struggling because like they didn't do the multi-platform stuff as well, as Xbox developers, were kind of getting to grips with that and all that. It kind of had this lousy reputation and it was too expensive and all this stuff. And just, I think some of those early exclusives, which of course didn't have the same problems that the multi-platform stuff had, got like relatively overlooked.
Yeah.
I mean,
I look at The Last of Us and I feel like those games are good, but I don't really see. I've played Uncharted all the way from 2007, so it's like, to me, it's like it's not some super impressive evolution. It's like, you can see how that gameplay style really hasn't changed much.
It's on a continuum.
Yes.
But you're right. Like, we've known now for a long time that Naughty Dog can make a good cutscene.
Absolutely.
We had the Last of Us, all the iterations of that. We had the 3 Uncharted games. Even some of the earlier stuff like Jak and Daxter. Even some of the Crash stuff. Way of the Warrior. Good video content. Only good video content here.
You're real Naughty Dog aficionado. You got to be on the ground floor, which is that's right. Very much the ground floor. The Way of the Warrior.
You didn't main Shaky Jake, are you really a fan? Oh my god.
Useful in so many situations.
He's got a large staff. It's kind of unfair.
Yeah.
That's missing the zeitgeist ahead is like weirdly frustrating in a way because especially in our position when you're on this show and you're screaming like, play this fucking game.
Yeah.
And people just don't, and then it comes out, people are like, can you believe this game? And I'm like, yeah, fucker. Here's me talking about it 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, there's a real chance. Like, Guillaume has this joke, and I've co-opted it about, like, people talk about Ghost Trick because they just want their friends to play Ghost Trick, and the curse of playing Ghost Trick is all you're going to be able to do is tell people to play Ghost Trick. There's a chance this re-release of Ghost Trick gives it the release it deserved, because it didn't really come out with much of an explosion.
Well, it was a little bit. I mean, look, maybe it's just impossible for it to get that much like mainstream traction or something. I don't know. I'm far too out of touch. Earlier on when I said we were, totally on the bleeding edge all the time, that was sarcasm. I'm not actually.
No.
No, I'm very, very severely out of touch all the time. So I could be wrong, naturally, but it doesn't seem like it's to be the easiest pathway to getting kind of mainstream recognition. But on DS, I feel like it could have done better than it did from the point of view that you think of stuff like Layton got like a certain amount of traction that is not like obvious, you know what I mean? Like logic puzzles in the context.
It was a lot earlier, though.
Well, that's exactly what I was coming to. you have a recipe like that, which hitherto was not something that you'd expect to be a very successful formula, especially outside of Japan. But the DS changed a lot of things about, the sorts of games that people were playing on dedicated gaming hardware and, gave things a chance. And Ghost Trick kind of missed out on that moment in time. It was the later part of the DS where, for whatever reasons you would point to in terms of the piracy or the smart devices coming in and stuff, like it just wasn't burning as hot anymore, and stuff that the stuff that kept like being relevant on DS later into its life was more traditional enthusiast gamer type stuff. Right. And the thing about Ghost Trick is it does kind of appeal to people like that, obviously, because it'll appeal to people who know Ace Attorney for a start.
Oh yeah,
but it could, I think, theoretically have appealed to more people than that. But by the time, and obviously the DS as a general matter was the sort of platform for that, but not at that stage. It was just, what was it, 2011?
Yeah.
In the US like anyway. I mean, I guess it came out earlier in Japan. The DS obviously was more than on its way out by then. The 3DS was it. So, it's just, it's kind of a shame in that sense. I don't know what the prospects are for kind of recapturing that, but there's always going to be stuff like that, isn't there? Where, especially, I mean, even more so like now with games, how long they take to develop. You see a trend, maybe, all these sorts of things are selling now, and then by the time you actually bring it to market, it's like the ship sailed. It's that happens.
You inspired me of another one. An almost identical boat. That's not really a boat, and I won't get in any more detail. Of 999. Which came out super late in incredibly limited quantity. And you could only get it physically. And I think like GameStops were getting like 2 of them total. I got my store's copy. Let's put it that way.
Got it. Yep.
Yeah. And so that game, people who played it, and that includes me on this show, were like, this game is amazing. You need to play it. And it wasn't really until the sequel came out on 3DS, which is a very similar game and is a sequel, that a sequel to a game that stridently didn't want to have a sequel, which is really funny. That series caught fire. And then we got a re-release of 999 and people played that. And then we got the third game and people were like, gross, this is awful. What did you do?
But again, I think the fact that the sequel was early on relatively with 3DS, like it was, we talk about this a lot, just in that kind of window where things have an opportunity to get traction with people that might not be in their kind of established diet of things that they play. You have a window of opportunity there early on, which, like Ghost Trick did not fall in for DS and 999 either.
Players can miss a game's zeitgeist, but a game can miss a system's zeitgeist.
Yeah.
Or a market trend zeitgeist.
Yeah, 100%. For sure.
No, it's the whole Yamauchi 3-year rule. I mean, obviously it's kind of very simplistic and, there's loads of things that go against it and all that, but there's plenty of times where it's like, like if you wanted to be, kind of a certain kind of hit on DS, it needed to be in that first 3 years. Otherwise, what I think in terms of the content and the quality of the game had the capacity to kind of break out a bit. But if you were outside of that 3-year window, it almost certainly wasn't going to happen for you.
Yeah, I think a game too I think its zeitgeist can be, almost eliminated by another game's zeitgeist depending on when it's released.
Yeah, you kind of takes all the oxygen.
Well, I think of Titanfall 2.
Oh.
Titanfall 2 released a week before Call of Duty Infinite Warfare.
And it's such a good fucking game.
But it didn't matter because people only talked about Infinite Warfare and nobody played Titanfall 2.
And you know what? It's another game where on this show, and whenever I meet people who talk about shooters, I scream at them to play. Basically, if you make me look like a lunatic screaming that you need to be played, this is probably a zeitgeist game. Or a lost, we'll call it like a missing zeitgeist.
Yeah, it's like
the lost zeitgeist.
The lost zeitgeist. I like that a lot because that was Titanfall 2 to a T.
Where does Geist fit into all this?
It got exactly what it deserved.
Exactly.
It got better than it deserved.
That was, when Guillaume was talking about a Chibi Robo was the only thing around on GameCube late on. I mean, I feel like Geist got a shortchanged there.
He wasn't on that. He wasn't on that retroactive.
That's true. It was good retroactive. It was fun.
It was great. That's the best thing that came out of that game. Is that retroactive? That game's a piece of garbage.
It was not that bad. It's got some ghost trick in there. That whole idea of possessing objects and making them do things
It's the wrapping that makes that game not feel good. It's got good ideas, and then it's just like, it's one of those, we talked about, so we're talking about review scores, how there's a million 6s and 7s, and it can mean anything. It's the 6 and 7 range of there's some good ideas here, and they are constantly being let down by the game itself.
And all the kind of identity crisis element of it, as I recall, obviously been a long time since I played it before that retroactive, but, just the feel of it kind of wants to be a shooter at times, and it's it kind of wants to be almost like a spiritual Matrix game of you're possessing people, the way that Agent Smith can possess people, and then you shoot just play a sort of orthodox shooter. But then at other times it's no, it's more like an adventure game, like a Ghost Trick or something, or like fucking, I don't know, Zakawiki, where it's no, you're gonna solve puzzles by fucking around with objects, and it didn't really I think it would have been more, to my taste, it would have been more interesting if it fully dedicated itself to being that kind of puzzle game rather than try to be a bit Me Too shooterish. But, I guess because the GameCube lacked for that, maybe they felt like that was a niche that it was more than a niche on other consoles that it could try and fill, but it wasn't. I don't think it was the right game to try and do that.
No. Do we want to do another email?
Well, John, I don't think we've even really asked John if he's got something to talk about. New business.
John, do you have new business?
I could talk about. I did pick up Theatrhythm Final Bar Line.
Okay,
but
I'll let you pick. Do you want to talk about that this week or next week?
Let's talk about it next week.
Okay, and then let's do this other email because I think it's pretty quick and it's goofy, and we haven't done a goofy email in a little bit. I'll read it. Andrew writes, "Dear RFN crew, my homie rollers. Well, playing Fire Emblem Engage, I had an idea. For far too long, Fire Emblem has been invaded by Smash... For far too long, Fire Emblem has invaded Smash Brothers, and I think it's time Smash took a shot back. I need to know which Smash character should invade Fire Emblem as a new emblem for the game. They would need some traits, like a super move, like if Kirby could inhale an enemy unit and get their stats. Please let us know who you would pick and what they would do. Thanks for all the effort in keeping me entertained at work." So now you could just randomly generate your entertainment. So
procedurally generated entertainment.
I mean, that's also a potential name for the episode. Yes. But I already procedurally generated the TSI image, so I can't do that joke again. Do we want to?
Kirby might be. I don't know. Probably. I guess if you made Kirby essentially tantamount to an easy mode, where it's if you recruit Kirby to your party, he's just gonna completely destroy the opposition and leave nothing in his wake. Then I'd be okay with it.
Let me give kind of a rundown of how the emblems work. So basically, you give an emblem to one of your characters, and during the majority of the time, it doesn't really do anything. I think it might give you a stat. It does give you a stat boost, but that's it. But you can occasionally there's a gauge that fills up. It starts full. that you can pop that you merge with the emblem. And so your character, almost like Tokyo Mirage Sessions, takes on like an armor that has like, it doesn't resemble the armor of that character that they engage with. It has elements that invoke it. It almost looks more like VR soldier shit from like a 90s movie a lot of times, but like big like LED visors and stuff. But it invokes the image of that character.
It's inspired by.
Right, exactly. You then get weapons based on the weapons that character used in their game. So like you might have a person who can't use swords, but they're engaged with Ike, and Ike obviously has a sword, he has an axe. And so you, as a consequence, get these special swords and axes that character used. They have special powers. And you can just attack with them, or you can continue to attack with your normal weapons. It might also give you some other skills, like the ability to move further on a turn, or the ability to move after attacking. You know, things that kind of speak to who that character is that you pick up as a consequence. And then they have one special move. And so, for example, Soren has a special move where he unleashes a magic blast that damages everybody around him. Who is it that has it? Lynn. She has a special move where she can launch an archery attack against anybody, pretty much anyone on the map. So you can basically use that to siege enemies that have super long range that damage you as you're coming up on them. You could just belt them from a distance. That kind of stuff. There are ones that Corrin turns into his dragon form, or her dragon form, I think it's female Corrin, and like attacks a bunch of enemies and then does the effect on the ground. Because remember, the dragons in that game could affect the ground. It's that kind of stuff. So we'd come up with the character who can do that. We could pick anybody from Fire Emblem. Jeez, anybody from Smash, except for the Fire Emblem characters, I assume. Yeah, so it'd be really easy.
I think we need to delve a little bit into a particular stretch of Smash history and go with Fox from like Brawl, where you have the Landmaster and just roll the tank all over everyone on the battlefield. I
thought you were going to go with Fox in Melee and he just vibrates.
No wave dash stuff. No, not quite that far back. But, like basically they got rid of that Final Smash because it just pissed everyone off. I think it takes too long. You could just like fly people off rather than just shoot them. Oh, yeah. You could like hover like out of there and stuff. So yeah, it had to go. This whole thing, like the Final Smashes in Ultimate ended up like they tried to harmonize them a bit more and like make them snappier. This was one of the ones very much at the forefront of why they did that. So I think, mate, well, if the spirit of the Landmaster can't continue in Smash, maybe we can dump it in Fire Emblem.
So there's that. I was originally going to come in here and make a joke about the Fire Emblem characters, but now that I'm looking at them, there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of great opportunity. Hero is obviously a really easy one because he's already a sword user, so that gives you the weapon. In fact, Hero uses multiple weapons. That gives you because you can get up to like 3 weapons from an engagement. And of course, Hero can also do magic. You can't control the magic as such, but he can control. He can do magic.
There's he'd be a high kind of chaos luck element to his what his actual actions do.
And you get one special per engagement, and then after the engage turns run out and you refill the meter, you can engage again and do that special again. But you only get one shot at it, and if you don't use it before the turns run out, you just lose it. That's a good one. Sephiroth kind of falls in that category of like, well, the special would obviously be Meteor. That's easy. But I don't know that you'd want because the other thing is the engage character has really pointless conversations with you that don't actually give you anything, but whatever. So I think I really want to pick Kazuya because he's just going to tell you to fall in a volcano to see if you're a demon. But I think the answer is I want to go with Piranha Plant. I want to merge with Piranha Plant. I want a Piranha Plant emblem. I want to be able to launch vines at my enemy. I mean, Corrin lets a character turn into a dragon. Why can't I turn into a carnivorous plant? I want to be able to spit fireballs as one of my skills, which is already a spell in the game. It's just only a handful of people can use it. Now anybody can throw fire, or can shoot thorns, or can bind a character to a place so they can't move. And of course, the special attack is warp pipe appears next to that character. You come out and then chomp them, and then the warp pipe disappears, and you're standing there where it had popped up, which is actually not that far from a special move that I think it's Leaf has, where he can just jump to anywhere on the map and does an attack when he gets there. Like, it works pretty well. And also, I talked about how the supports with all the emblems suck, because they're all like 2 lines, and it'll be like Alcrest going, I'm not sure I'm good enough. And then saying this to Hector, of all people, and Hector going, no, you're great. And that's the end of the scene. End of the scene. It's awful. It's better off just not putting them in there, because they're garbage. But what if it was Piranha Plant and Alcrest going, I don't think I'm good enough. And then Piranha Plant just fucking bites him. Granted, they're ethereal. They don't have any physical form, but he does chomp at him. And Alcrest just goes, ah! Like, to me, that would have been the best scene in the game, bar none. Best scene in the game. So I'm going to go with Piranha Plant, and I'm going to let y'all go, because I've got another one that I'd like to do, but I don't want to steal anybody's.
I mean, I don't really know too much about like what framework I'm putting them into, because I've never played Fire Emblem Engage.
Sure. Just imagine, what weapons would this character give someone in a Fire Emblem context, and like what's a special attack they could do that it's so powerful you don't even let them do it once.
I mean, I always play Yoshi, so being able to turn somebody into an egg would be pretty funny. I think.
That would be good. Or you could just drop a giant egg on them and do a bunch of damage.
Yeah, and I guess the super attack would be turning into an egg and just rolling around all over the battlefield.
Fuck, that's not bad.
Well, we could also, because they had obviously this was another Final Smash that got changed, because like the current Yoshi Final Smash is a reference to the Melee cinema with like the Yoshi Stampede. Yeah, but the Brawl one was the Super Dragon, as they called it, where he gets the wings and just breathes fire. It's kind of like in Super Mario World, if you had all the abilities of the different shells, so he's got the wings of the blue shell, he's got the fire breath of the red shell combined. But so you could become essentially an aerial unit at that point. If you use that Final Smash and cast fire magic. So yeah, that would be pretty good. But they need to have like an environmental feature, so that if you're on a bridge or something and you do the egg lay as Yoshi, like they go off the edge of the bridge and die instantly really cheaply. Not that I've ever, used cheap tactics as Yoshi.
Never. No, never
myself,
happens.
But I've seen it done, certainly.
Greg, do you have one?
Yeah, I'm trying to make a case for Min Min here, just to like keep her alive.
So that was the other one that I was thinking of.
I'm just kind of thinking like Min Min might end up as like such a relic of that game. You know what I mean? Like all the stuff that's in Smash Ultimate, and it's not all timeless or anything.
I forgot
obviously.
Min Min was there until I was looking at the character list just now, and I mained her for like a month.
Yeah, you just kind of feel like with all it, because a lot of the DLC characters were not necessarily that current. I mean, some of them were. Byleth, obviously. Right. Speaking of Fire Emblem invading Smash Brothers. But, a lot of it is like, Sephiroth, your Banjo, the Dragon Quest hero, like a lot of it's like historically important kind of things rather than current things. But yeah, I mean, and, there were some, obviously, like the Joker from Persona 5 and Min Min.
I mean, historical fucking Terry Bogard.
Yes, I mean that's exactly just like all the SNK history that came with him as well. So like there was a lot. So, but like whereas I don't know, like a Joker might be specific to Persona 5, but it's like Persona's not going anywhere. I'm sure like that series is going to continue. People are going to remember Persona 5. Like ARMS, you do kind of wonder whether years from now when people look at the massive roster of Smash Ultimate and they're like, who is that? Like. like when they look at Min Min. So I'm trying to sort of make a case of like how you could keep Min Min alive. I guess the biggest thing would be like good attack range. You can have the flurry rush thing, the super move kind of thing, to do extra damage and stuff. The different elemental arms, like, you've got like the electric one, the fire one, that kind of stuff, so you definitely work it into the game's magic spells and the elemental things attached.
So there are like weapons that shoot magic at a distance. So her arm could do that. And it does different damage up close versus at a distance, where up close it does physical and magic. At a distance it just does magic. So that could be like the arms. The merge with, I think it's the merge with Corrin, you get the big stretchy arms anyway. So like the pieces are there for her.
Merge with Werehog, you get the big stretchy arms.
There you go. I'm just trying to figure out what the special for her would be. It's got to involve noodles. Like I feel like her character can't be in there if there's not noodle inclusion. I just don't know how you would construct noodles as her special.
I don't know, maybe it's like if there's a body of water around, like it raises the temperature to cook the noodles in, and it somehow has an environmental effect that hurts any nearby enemies or something.
Anyone standing in the water gets hurt. There is kind of a mission like that. So yeah, you're not far off. The other one that I was thinking about, purely from the standpoint of, there's two here. And there's one it's just great all around. And there's one that it's very specifically great with Anna, which is the only character in this game I like. Because like I said, she's like a 12-year-old gremlin who her only thought is get rich quick schemes. And that's...
No, it's like a Ferengi, basically.
Yeah, but like she owns it. Like there's an extended sequence of her trying to convince somebody to buy fruit, and she's just straight up lying about its medicinal properties. And he knows she's lying, and she calls her out on it, and she doesn't care. She's just like, well, I'm just trying to make a sale. It's like, fuck it. I love her. She's great. Protect her at all costs. That of pairing her with someone like Isabel with a potential Tom Nook inclusion is really fucking tantalizing. Because the supports of her and Isabel talking where Isabel at her, just like comparing her to Tom Nook is really promising and has lots of like, it has big Project Cross Zone energy. of speaking of Kazuya, of the Mishimas talking to Phoenix about, hey, I might have some work for you after we get out of this situation. And Maya being excited and him going, no, I don't want to take this case. Please don't make me take this case. That comes into play. But I think the character that has the maximum opportunity for 1, weapons, 2, a special, and 3, punching up that really boring dialogue between the characters and the emblems, specifically a lot of our male characters, is Bayonetta.
Oh, man, I thought it was going to go Solid Snake, because, I mean, come on. Like,
Solid Snake is also there, too.
That's a pretty good one.
Codec conversation expert, he's always got a lot to say, a lot to learn about with the various characters telling him about, like, movie history or whatever Kojima wants us to know about. And then,
Snake,
like, the guy could just call in a fucking airstrike. I mean, come on.
Why do they call him the Fell Dragon? Well, Snake, he can turn into a dragon. What?
He's always so incredulous.
What do you mean he can turn into a What's a dragon? Snake, a dragon from mythology. It's a large reptilian creature that breathes. I know what a dragon is. What do you mean he can turn into a dragon?
You're telling me that wouldn't be an improvement on the support conversations as you?
Oh, it would be fantastic.
Exactly.
But I'm just trying to think of like the male characters in this game trying to keep their shit together as Bayonetta tries to break them. Which is just like, oh my god, like poor so Alcrest is a prince. He's a second prince, and he has no self confidence, and his brother is like the meme Giga Chad character. This is how bad it is. He's an archer. His brother is an axe and swordsman, and their final support, their grade A support, is Alchrist finally gets the nerve to challenge his brother to an archery contest. Alchrist is a trained archer. That's his only job. And he still loses. And his brother goes, "You've really improved." It's like, motherfucker, you just beat his ass at his own job. And that's his like big reveal for his growth moment. It's like, God damn. But him talking to Bayonetta would be the funniest shit in the world. Because he would have nothing to say. He would be terrified. And Baya's great. Baya's got all kinds of weapons. She's got guns. She's got blades. She's got demons she can summon.
She's got rocket launchers named after Robert Duvall in Apocalypse Now.
There you go. Like, in terms of what her special is, fuck it. I don't care. It could be anything. Because she could summon Madame Butterfly and just crush some poor dude with her hair.
In 3, like, they go really big on the kaiju stuff. Like, so, yeah, just... It's like, I think we've said before when we had the whole, like, you know, who was the most powerful character or whatever. Like, yeah, if it's not Kirby, then it's Bayonetta. In terms of, like, if you have a Bayonetta, it probably should be like the win button. Like, okay, you've now put. It's like in Bayonetta itself, like they have like charms or accessories that if you use them, like it makes the game easier, but that means you can't grade out as well. Like, it should be like that. Like, it's like, okay, you use the Bayonetta summon, then, you know, it has to be noted that it was, it's a somewhat expedited process.
If your character can canonically alter the flow of time, you're kind of overpowered. Especially if you can reverse
you get, like, extra turns because which time gets activated.
Yeah, like, shit like that. Now, I mean, the thing is, there's so many options. Like, Wario is an appealing option. Wario and Anna are two money-seeking gremlins together. Would be really good. I mean, because this is the woman who convinced other members of the army to make things for her so she could sell them. She did not really talk about cutting them in on the profit. Like, there's big Wario energy to be had there.
Yeah, that's right. It's pretty much the plot of, like, WarioWare Gold, isn't it?
Yeah, because he didn't cut them in, and they're like, wait a minute. But, you know, I think support conversations with DK could be fun. Like there's some possibility there. I think Daisy being another princess just hanging around in a game that already has like 8 princesses in it. Could create some interesting jealousies. Nobody's ever jealous. Like, nobody ever says... So, Soren is a DLC character, a DLC emblem in this game, and he's interesting because he's the only emblem who's not positive 100% of the time at all times. He's the only character who has something approaching a realistic reaction of, nah, y'all's plan is stupid, we're all gonna die. And it's like, yeah, he's right. Their plan is stupid. It's a very stupid plan. It's... Like, more, I need more of that. I need more like jaded narcissism or cynicism or any kind of like negative react. Like, I don't need Ryu because he's just going to be like, we get to fight a large dragon. That sounds exciting to me. Let's go fight this dragon. I need like, I've had a bad time. Things are broken down for me. Screw it. Let's go. And like, maybe Villager stone-facing all the support conversations and never saying something would be really fun. The characters just talk to him and he just stares back blankly. But no, I think my initial reaction to go with Piranha Plant really feeds the chaos that this needs. Anybody but Sora is good, but I mean, Terry would be pretty good too. He just screams at people the whole time. What are your weapons? I punch people.
Well, so yeah, you'd have to have the thing that you have in Smash where his attacks hit harder when he's got quite a lot of damage. Like, you know, you could work that in, couldn't you?
There are stats that, you know, characters have individual bonuses. There are bonuses that I think that's one of them, is you do more damage at higher or at lower HP.
Yeah, if you've less health remaining in it.
You could also do the like awkward supports of Bayonetta with Pyra/Mythra, where if it, like, in some supports it's Mythra and some supports it's Pyra, and you get they do that with the DLC characters and with Erica, because Erica's brother, whose name I'm blanking on, shares her engage ring, so like you can flip between them. But in the supports with the Three Houses idiots, You get all three of them, so your supports might be with any one of the three of them, where they might have some stupid thought to give you. So, like, I've gotten a lot of ones with one of the princes. A lot of his are with Dimitri, which makes sense because they both have very similar character arcs. And so Dimitri is giving him advice. My immediate thought is, you really shouldn't be giving advice. You didn't handle it very well, but okay. You do you, my man. It is weird that it's them as teenagers, though, and their support, not them as adults. But, you know, what can I say? I do want Min Min. I want for the same reason. I want to save Min Min.
Yeah, because you just kind of think, yeah, I don't know whether they'll
that
ever
character
come back.
design is so good too.
We talked about it earlier on, that kind of early hardware window that, you know, that you try things because people will actually be receptive, and ARMS very much fell into that and seemed like it did fine for what they wanted it to do, but not like, you know, the original Splatoon, which was actually like late on shitty hardware in terms of commercially shitty selling hardware on Wii U, where it's like, no, it's outperformed expectations and any reasonable expectations you could have had so much. Like, this has to keep being a thing. Like, I don't think ARMS came particularly close to that, so it's hard to imagine that it will, like, you know, get brought back very much other than in things like Smash, you know, where we're referencing, you know, various corners of Nintendo history. And God knows when the next Smash will be. I mean, I can't see it for a very, very long time, basically. Like, I mean, I think probably the immediate future of, like, Smash products is probably putting out, like, you know, a Melee reissue or something. Like, I just can't see how you even begin to tackle, like, like, starting from scratch when you've, like, spent so long building what, you know, the final form of Smash Ultimate.
Like, it's almost sold too many units for them to just go like, you could just take it to the next system with you. We're just going to keep Smash Ultimate going forever. But also, like, what if they just charged
what about the licensing agreements with a lot of this stuff? Like, how specific to the hardware or the number of years? I mean, how extensible is any of that stuff? Like, I have no idea. It probably wasn't all that easy with certain ones, especially Sora. Like, I think it's a reason why it was last.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, at one point, will they have to pull a character out of the game because the license expires?
Yeah, like, it's just, I don't know. That's the future of Smash Brothers seems, which it has to have one. It sold 30 million copies, and it's been a Nintendo franchise on, you know, every generation of Nintendo hardware, you know, since N64, but, you know, you just kind of feel like, it's kind of difficult to see a pathway forward. Yeah, so even that route might not be all that open to a Min Min or similarly kind of obscure characters anytime that soon.
God. Well, that's another email you could send us. And John, if they wanted to send us a question about what we think the future of Smash Brothers is, where would they send that email?
I feel like there's a reason why you're asking me this. You're expecting me to trip over my words or make some sort of mistake
No! I'm asking you this because last time it didn't go great. And
that was the first time it didn't go great in forever.
I know. That's why I'm giving you a chance to make it go great. Because I believe you will get it right this time. I do.
All right. They can reach us via email. At at rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That is, to repeat, rfn@nintendoworldreport.com, James.
Thank you, John. I legitimately had no ulterior motive besides he's going to get it right this time, so I'm just going to ask. Because I busted his balls about it last time, so I'm going to do it this time when I know
we'll get right back on the horse, haven't you?
Yeah,
right.
Hey, ain't nothing to it but to do it, you know?
There you go.
I had 2 weeks to stew on it, so.
Also, retroactive. Hey, I don't have a date for it yet, but you should have probably already bought it. It's too late now.
I'm going to mention this in the closing music because it's relevant. I think it's March 27th, I want to say.
Oh, you're right.
So, yeah, we're not quite there yet, but it is very close at hand now that the eShop for Wii U and 3DS is going to be shuttered.
Right. So if you want to buy all the various DLC options for Fire Emblem
Fates,
with its weird third path that's DLC only and now with more incest, you can do that. Or you could buy Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker HD, which has not been ported to Switch yet, which feels like it should have been by now. But
it feels like it's probably a bit late. With Tears of the Kingdom coming, because we already had, we've had a decent stream of Zelda content since Breath of the Wild with the Link's Awakening remake, with the Skyward Sword HD kind of remaster, and now obviously we're on the eve of Tears of the Kingdom. So it just kind of feels like if it was going to happen, it probably should have happened somewhere in that sequence rather than afterwards, but who knows? If there's to be a little bit of a protracted sequence of the new hardware's coming, but it's gonna take a while and we need to string some things out, I guess it could still happen. But the Wind Waker HD is certainly a nice version of the game to play, and then there is the for people who still have the disc and a GameCube or Wii to play it on. They could go that way.
Yep, they could play the original. But we are doing a retroactive for Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I don't have a date. I don't have an episode.
I've made a start, but when I say that, I mean I'm in the Forsaken Fortress, so...
Yeah, so you could start on it now, because I don't have a plan. But if you don't own it, you should, and you want to participate, which I hope you do, you should buy it. And if you have been playing it and you have comments, I will have a thread. I probably won't have it for this week's episode. I'll definitely have it for next week's, where you can post your thoughts. You can also put them in the talk back to the episode thread. You can post them in the Discord, but of course Discord is transient, so it's kind of hard to spot. There is the RFN Twitter account at RFN Podcast. John set something up on Mastodon too, if you're one of the 8 people who live there.
We have more than 8 followers, James, for RFN.
Are you gonna go to the dozens of us thing? Is that
dozens of us? Yeah.
James, one day.
Or is it below 24?
The thing is, I think this is very apropos, James. Your veiled shots at the Fediverse. I feel like talk about the zeitgeist. I feel like you are missing it. Right. I feel
Mastodon, like, the thing people can't figure out how to use.
No, I mean, people can't figure out how to use. Oh, James. You see, this is the thing. Right now, I mean, trust me, when the zeitgeist comes a year or two from now, I will already have missed it, but you can ride the wave. Feel free to ride the zeitgeist.
I'm gonna surf on in there like a cool dude.
Now I'm just thinking of John as Martin Prince, waiting to get the pool so he can be queen of summertime.
There you go. Hey, John, did you know it snowed in San Francisco?
It's just...
That's the zeitgeist for us.
It is. Yeah.
It finally happened.
What if? Johnny Mosley... Was Johnny Mosley... Was he a prophet?
I could tell you his game didn't make a profit.
Yeah. Well played.
Yeah, so... On that, Greg, what is our music to conclude?
Well, yeah, so indeed, we are kind of, first of all, last week was in fact the 12th anniversary of the Japanese launch of the 3DS, because,
God, I feel so old.
It was still at a time when, we had that kind of gap between, Nintendo hardware still launched in Japan first, in that case, and then it was only a matter of weeks later, of course, because you got to get in for the end of the fiscal year in North America and elsewhere. But yeah, there was that at the end of February, and then, as I said, a few weeks later, it was out everywhere else. Not, as we know, the strongest launch in Nintendo history in terms of the software or the performance in sales, and which led to a very proactive save the system kind of effort from Nintendo that ultimately did kind of achieve what it set out to do, but at significant cost. But yeah, that was 12 years ago, and of course, we kind of that anniversary, for the North American launch will essentially be marked by the sort of final death of the system with the aforementioned shuttering of the eShop on, I believe it's March 27th, but I'm not absolutely sure, but it's somewhere around there. But at the end of, somewhere a few months ago, towards the end of last year, Seren sent an email. I think we did the email, about just, I think it's titled just like "We're all old" or something, and it was various things, sort of statistics that demonstrated as such about how long, how old the 3DS is and so forth. I'm sure like Wind Waker HD probably fits into that category, doesn't it? Because that's like 10 years old now. In itself, it's like, so yeah, that could certainly qualify as one of these sobering signs of how old we all are. But at that time, Seren also did request for at some point to be used the theme for the activity log on your 3DS. So this could be sort of the theme music for you reviewing how terribly long ago all your fun adventures on 3DS were, as the system kind of, like I said, it's had a few deaths, including one near miss, like right at the start, but this feels kind of like the last one, the final nail in the coffin. But yeah, this will take you back to a time when Nintendo's kind of, system level kind of menus and whatnot had charming kind of music and personality before that was very much cast aside in the name of just getting the thing to work as quickly as possible on Switch.
Sterilized.
Yes.
Well, on that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
And by the way, James, before you wrap it up, we have 63 followers on Mastodon. Okay? All right, so those 63 intrepid individuals, I salute you. You are on the bleeding edge of social media.
Which Mastodon are they on?
Mastodon.social.
Okay. You got to tell people which Mastodon they can find you on.
It's like, hey, you got to tell people what email provider you're on. I know it's super complicated.
So,
Gmail, Outlook, oh my God, Hotmail, I can't handle it, James.
Keep going, keep vamping. This is content. This is hashtag content. Keep going.
I can't handle it. It's so complicated.
There it is. That's it. It's you named the episode.
Mastodon.social, people. 63 followers. Let's get it to 70. Let's go.
All right, John. If it's 70 by this time next week, I will forget that I promised to apologize.
It's not going to be, and you wouldn't apologize anyways. I wouldn't even accept your apology.
You heard it here first, folks. On that, it's like now I'm tempted to go either "It's so complicated" as the episode title, or I wouldn't even accept your episode 812. I wouldn't even accept your apology. I almost feel like I have to. I feel like that's it. I feel like that's because people will be hearing this at the dead ass end of the episode. Guillaume, when you're editing this, start the music before, like, as there was that quick pause, and then stop it, because like people will be hearing.
Wait, they never said the line, and but no.
There it is. I feel like I have a moral obligation to call the episode. I will.
So some people have like RFN listening parties where when the episode title is actually said, it's like the secret word on Pee Wee's Playhouse, and just everything goes crazy.
Ah!
You know they're out there. College dorms across the nation.
Yes.
I think we'd all be arrested if we were in a college dorm at this point, so it's fine.
They would think I was a nerd.
Even just that voice is being played out of a device. It's like, no, we better arrest the physical person as well.
Yeah, we better track him down.
We gotta find that man so this doesn't happen again.
Cut it off at the source, isn't it? Only way to be sure.
Is it, or were they just going to AI generate?
Yeah, procedurally generated. That's true.
You can't stop RFN. Even when we die, it will keep being published.
Yeah, it'll be like Tupac at Coachella.
Well, it'll be like when we played Coachella, yes.
It's true. Yeah.
All right. So on that, it's time for Jesus.
It's past time for us to go, everybody.
Yeah, it's actually after time for us to go. So bye, everybody.
Later.
Bye-bye.
That's it. That's all I got.
Well, I know you mentioned like the AI, the algorithm just generating Seinfeld out of nothing because he wasn't in the scene before and suddenly he's there. So what if I told you that the algorithm for our show just generated someone who's been absent so far?
Oh shit! We probably should have had him recording before we did that, huh?
No, well, we can
edit it together.
I'm putting a mark here.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. Bring him in.
Yeah.
Do you want to stop recording or want to just bring him in?
We can just bring him in.
We're nearly an hour in, so I mean, it could be a natural.
Well,
break
we can bring him in, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. Well, we can. What I could do is just splice these together without, like, we could take our break, and then I could, pretend that it was not a break. Like, we could pretend like we just keep going.
Ooh, that's saucy.
Well, they don't need to know.
Oh, fair enough. Or this could be the stinger, and they could find out afterwards that they've been had.
Whoa.
Sure.
Magician reveals his secrets.
Everyone loves to feel they've been lied to.
Yeah, it's a key part of all media.
Mm-hmm.
I legitimate. All right, yeah, let's do that. Let's take a pause here, and then we'll start recording again. We can get some new business in, and then do a couple emails.
Okay, so
cool.
Stop recording.
Well, I have to clap.
We'll do the countdown.
Oh yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.